Chapter 5:15. The palm pressed down like a small mountain. Waves surged and surged. Before the huge palm, Xiaoqin was as insignificant as an ant. Xiaoqin had been on guard against that young cultivator. However, he had not expected the other party to execute such a powerful killing move in an instant. This was simply incredible. However, there was no time for Xiaoqin to be shocked or flustered. The cold chi spread out and the huge palm pressed down. The area it covered was so large that Xiaoqin could not retreat. The surging cold chi also interrupted his thoughts of diving to the bottom of the sea. If Xiaoqin dived to the bottom of the sea, the cold chi would freeze him into an ice sculpture, leaving him at the mercy of others. Xiaoqin could not retreat or dodge. In that case, he could only fight. Blood-colored lightning streaked across the pitch-black sky from time to time. A scarlet wukue grew rapidly above Xiaoqin's head. The instant the scarlet wukue completely formed, a scarlet light gathered on the tip of Xiaoqin's saber. The light quickly elongated. The instant the huge palm pressed down, it rushed towards the center of the palm. Bang! When Xiaoqin infused his saber intent into the incomparably sharp scarlet saber intent, it became even sharper. This wukue breaks the heavens was much stronger than before. With a flash of light, a small hole appeared in the center of the palm in an instant. On the blood-colored giant ice palm, a small hole appeared. Cracks spread out on the huge scarlet ice palm. Just as it was about to touch Xiaoqin's head, it shattered and turned into countless scarlet ice shards, filling the air. Rumble. The remnant saber intent shattered the ice shards, turning them into drops of blood and falling to the surface of the sea. Instantly, it looked like a rain of blood fell from the sky where Xiaoqin was. Xiaoqin looked forward and saw that the yellow-robed cultivator had long since disappeared. Along with him were the corpses of the several dozen high-ranked winged demons. Interesting. I was wondering why he dared to clash head-on with me with less than half his essence remaining. Xiaoqin was not afraid of arrogant genius cultivators. No matter how talented such people were, their accomplishments would be limited. What was frightening were geniuses who knew when to advance and when to retreat. Geniuses who would not make a move unless they were confident of winning, and who knew when to advance and when to retreat, would not act rashly. Such people were the most frightening. "Sorry, I have caused you trouble," Ling Yu said softly as she walked over. Ling Yu was the main reason why the other party had suddenly attacked. Seeing that he was so close to the succubus, that person would probably find it hard to believe that he was really just passing by and not here to take advantage of her. Xiaoqin shook his head and said, "You don't have to apologize. Unless we enter the human camp, I won't force you unless it's absolutely necessary. If you say you don't want to enter, then I won't." Ling Yu did not understand. Xiaoqin was clearly the kind of person who could clearly calculate the pros and cons of various things. He had always been extremely decisive when doing things. He couldn't understand why he would agree to her outrageous request even though he knew that he would be in trouble. As Xiaoqin looked at the calm scarlet sea before him, he ignored Ling Yu's thoughts. He was still thinking about that young man. Xiaoqin wondered which clan this genius cultivator came from. Indeed, there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the younger generation. In the past, he had been like a frog in a well. Xiaoqin still had a long way to go. In the four nations, his strength might already be at the peak. Aside from the royal court disciples of the various nations, no one else could compare to him. However, when looking at the entire world, not to mention the youths standing at the top of the pyramid in the great Jin nation, there were probably many youths stronger than him in the boundless sea. Just at this moment, Xiaoqin's eyes suddenly narrowed. He felt an extreme sense of danger. He scanned the west with his spiritual sense and saw 10-odd middle-ranked fire demons riding fire clouds flying over quickly. "Quick, let's go. We can't stay here any longer." Xiaoqin did not give Ling Yu a chance to react. He directly picked her up and executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art, rushing forward. Bang! 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 The moment Xiaoqian's feet left, a huge fireball suddenly landed where he had been standing. The fireball exploded on the Scarlet Sea. A deep, spherical pit immediately appeared on the calm sea. A large amount of seawater instantly evaporated due to the high temperature of the fireball. The surrounding seawater quickly gathered, and a huge whirlpool appeared on the Scarlet Sea. Among the demons, Xiaochen feared the most, it would be the fire demons. Of all the demons, the fire demons had the lowest defense. However, the fire demons' offensive prowess and technique surpassed all the demons. If 4 or 5 middle-ranked demons attacked, even if Xiaochen did not die, he would be severely injured. After Xiaochen tried out the consequences, he could not be bothered with the fire demons anymore. Without saying anything, he left first, not getting entangled with them. The 10-odd flaming figures rode on the flaming clouds as they chased after Xiaochen. Their attacks rained down relentlessly, causing the seawater behind Xiaochen to churn endlessly, forming waves that soared into the sky. The most annoying thing about the middle-ranked blood demons was that they were very fast. Even though Xiaochen used the blue dragon cloud soaring art, he would not be able to shake them off in a short time. This time, Xiaochen was carrying one person. If he wanted to shake them off, it would take him a long time. Xiaochen continuously scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense, trying to find the best route for him to take. This was to avoid running into other demons on the way, which would be even more problematic. Suddenly, Xiaochen revealed a smile. His spiritual sense caught sight of a familiar figure in front. This time, it would not be as troublesome as before. Xiaochen's figure flashed, and his speed increased again. After 7 or 8 minutes, he arrived before that person. "Old Bai, it's been a long time. Help me out." That familiar person was Bai Lishi, who had a full set of medial-grade secret treasures. Xiaochen had not seen him for a long time. At this moment, Bai Lishi had just finished a battle and was happily sweeping the battlefield. He had gained a lot. When Bai Lishi saw Xiaochen's somewhat miserable figure, he stopped what he was doing and laughed loudly. "I just knew that you would not know your limits and run into the inner area. How is it? You ran into trouble, right? At the crucial moment, you still have to watch me, old Bai, make a move." Xiaochen smiled faintly and did not deny it. "That is natural." Bai Lishi turned his head and looked behind Xiaochen. He saw 10-odd fire demons flying through the air, rushing over. Bai Lishi's expression immediately changed. He quickly took a few steps back and said, "Damn it. I knew that you would not come looking for me for anything good. Of all the fire demons, you chose to provoke them." Leng Yu, who was in Xiaochen's embrace, smiled gently at Bai Lishi. She said in a sweet voice, "Big brother, please help me. I beg you." When Bai Lishi heard this, he felt somewhat dizzy. He felt his heart pounding heavily. Unexpectedly, a somewhat shy blush appeared on his coarse face. "I'm afraid of you. I'll help you this time." Bai Lishi did not dare to look Leng Yu in the eye. He gently leaped up and arrived behind Xiaochen. After Xiaochen stood still for a moment, he recovered his wits. "What's wrong with me? These are 10-odd fire demons." However, the situation did not allow Xiaochen to hesitate. The attacks of the fire demons had already covered his head and landed on him in an unending stream. With Bai Lishi's help, Xiaochen quickly pulled himself away. He only stopped after moving more than a kilometer away with Leng Yu. As for Bai Lishi's safety, Xiaochen was not worried. Back then, the dozens of ancient demonic energy cannons of the Black Dragon group could not do anything to him. A mere 10-odd medial-grade fire demons would be even worse. That set of medial-grade secret treasures was not something to be trifled with. At most, he would suffer some physical pain. Bang! 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 Even when Xiaochen stood a kilometer away, he could still hear the endless explosions. The waves from the seawater were more than a kilometer away, but they still reached Xiaochen's feet. After 1 hour, the explosions died down. The seawater stopped churning as well. The battle should be over. Xiaochen released Leng Yu from his embrace and quickly walked forward, arriving at the place where he parted ways with Bai Lishi. Bai Lishi's entire body was charred black, and black smoke came out of his head. He sat on the surface of the sea in a sorry state, panting. 5 or 6 fire demons' corpses floated beside him. The remaining fire demons were nowhere to be seen. Bai Lishi's monstrous defense had frightened them. Bai Lishi was probably the only person in the inner area who could make the fire demons feel so hard to deal with. When Bai Lishi heard Xiaochen and Leng Yu's footsteps, he stood up and looked at Xiaochen with an unfriendly expression. Helplessness appeared on his charred face as he said, "Brat, this time, you really caused me trouble." Leng Yu smiled gently and said, "Thank you, big brother." When Bai Lishi saw Leng Yu's smile, he was startled. He quickly said, "Sister, don't smile at me. I can't take it." Leng Yu's slender black tail gave her away. Earlier, she was in Xiaochen's embrace. Bai Lishi had not seen it clearly, but he did not care. Now that he saw it clearly, he quickly put some distance between them. At the same time, he pulled Xiaochen to the side and whispered, "I say, you don't seem like someone who indulges in beauty. What's with that Eros demon?" Xiaochen was not willing to say much. He only explained seriously, "I have my own plans. I will not succumb to it. She has an agreement with me." Bai Lishi waved his hand and said, "I can't be bothered with your matters. I have to go back. First of all, you have to give me the spirit stones to repair the secret treasure now." Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, I'll go back with you. I have not returned for 3 months. It is time to rest." When Bai Lishi heard this, he looked at Xiaochen like he was looking at a monster. He had not expected Xiaochen to not return for 3 months. Knowing that Xiaochen had returned to the human camp, Leng Yu did not say anything. She turned into a beam of dim light and entered the spirit blood jade. Along the way, Bai Lishi expressed all sorts of astonishment and curiosity at Xiaochen's experiences. He found it strange that Xiaochen had not returned to rest even once in 3 months. One had to know that when a person immersed themselves in massacres, their mind would be in a constant state of tension. After a long time, one's mind would become extremely fatigued. A normal person would have to vent their stress. At the very least, they would have to go back once a month. Otherwise, it would be hard to persevere. Xiaochen did not have any special explanation for this. This was because he did not know the reason either. Perhaps it was because his mental energy was stronger than ordinary people's. Bai Lishi chuckled and said, "You don't have to say anything more. After taking in an Eros demon as a forbidden pet, he can vent whenever he wants. There is no need for him to return to the divine dragon worship." Xiaochen was speechless. It was not convenient for him to say more about this matter. He could only change the topic. "Is there any news of big brother Sun Guangquan?" When Bai Lishi heard this, his expression turned grave. He shook his head and said, "No. This time, that fellow has made up his mind. He will not come out until he becomes a martial monarch. Everyone calls him undefeatable unless he becomes a martial monarch. He has had enough of it." Chapter 5:16. Xiaochen's heart skipped a beat. He asked, "How confident are you?" Bai Lishi replied with a sullen expression, "It's hard to say. He already reached peak consummation half-step martial monarch a year ago. He is just short of opening his sea of consciousness. Once his sea of consciousness is formed, he will be able to advance to martial monarch. However, cultivating mental energy is as difficult as ascending to heaven. At least 70% of cultivators fail this hurdle." Xiaochen had always respected the bloody bladesman, Sun Guangquan, as a senior bladesman. Xiaochen was like a teacher and a friend to Sun Guangquan. Although Xiaochen had only known Sun Guangquan for a short time, Sun Guangquan had helped Xiaochen a lot. Xiaochen could only silently pray for Sun Guangquan, hoping that he could overcome this hurdle and not fall. 4 days later, the two traveled at full speed and left the inner area of the endless battlefield. The 3 outpost islets appeared before everyone's eyes. Many cultivators rested on the outpost islets before preparing to set off again. Xiaoqin sized up the crowd and discovered that many of them were very strong. Furthermore, most of them were young. He felt it was strange. He said, "Why do there seem to be so many new faces?" Bai Lishi nodded and said, "Yes. When I returned 2 months ago, I learned that the Divine Dragon Palace sent invitations to the other 3 boundless seas. Several of the noble clans of the southern boundless sea, the northern boundless sea, and the western boundless sea have sent people over. I heard that the Divine Dragon Palace's Dragon King used the old Dragon King's favor to get these people to come." Xiaoqin still felt suspicious. He said, "It is just a 3rd-grade battlefield. With the Divine Dragon Palace's strength, they can't handle it. You can just send out some martial monarchs to surround and annihilate them." Bai Lishi laughed and said, "Brat, don't oversimplify things. The eastern boundless sea has more than 1/3-grade battlefield. The 4th-grade battlefield and the 5th-grade battlefield all need martial monarchs to guard them. They cannot leave. Otherwise, there will be big trouble. The 6th-grade battlefield is the place that the 4 boundless seas guard together. It is of utmost importance. The Divine Dragon Palace has to send people there. Furthermore, the border between the Divine Dragon Palace and the Black Dragon Group is not peaceful. They need a large number of martial monarchs to guard it. No matter how strong the Divine Dragon Palace is, how many people do you think they can spare?" However, Xiaoqian's frown did not relax. He kept feeling that something was wrong with this 3rd-grade battlefield. However, his knowledge was limited and he could not refute Bai Lishi's words. This time, the 2 of them were going to take a long break. Thus, they didn't stay on the outpost islets and quickly headed for the Divine Dragon warship. After another half a day, the Divine Dragon warship, which looked like a small city, appeared in their sight. The 2 of them could not help but increase their speed again. They finally dared to completely board the Divine Dragon warship before the sky turned dark. The surface area of the giant warship was incomparably huge, comparable to a real small city. The square where Xiaoqin was last time was just the tip of the iceberg. Under Bai Lishi's lead, Xiaoqin passed through building after building. There were tea houses, restaurants, inns, weapon shops, and all sorts of services. It was no different from a regular city. Bai Lishi pointed to a magnificent wooden pavilion and smiled. "That is the Spring Pavilion. It is also the place with the best business." Xiaoqin looked over and discovered that there were many people coming and going at the entrance. Business was booming. After thinking about it, it was not hard to understand. Cultivators who fought for a long time needed a place to relax and vent. Lust was undoubtedly the best way to vent. After making a few turns, Bai Lishi brought Xiaoqin to a vast hall. This place was bustling with people, and the heat was intense. It was even more crowded than the Spring Pavilion. Bai Lishi said softly, "We have arrived. This is the command center of this battlefield. You can exchange your points for all sorts of things here. Let's go in." The 2 of them followed the crowd in. The hall did not have many extravagant decorations, it was very simple and unadorned. A flickering jade wall stood in the center of the hall. A large number of people gathered in front of the jade wall, discussing in soft voices. The Southern Sea's 4 heroes are indeed very strong. They have only been in this battlefield for 2 months, and they have already made it into the top 20. The Western Sea's 7 knights and the Northern Sea's 4 young masters are pretty strong as well. They managed to make it into the top 20 easily as well. These people practically occupy the top 20 spots. These people are the young experts of the Boundless Sea. They have participated in a few battlefield experiential trials. It is not surprising that they have such results. There are also experts from other places. The Great Jin Nation's Evil Moon Pavilion's Baijan is very powerful. He has always been in the top 3 and has never fallen from the top. Ha ha! You also know that he is from the Great Jin Nation. How can he not be strong? At such a young age, he is already a small perfection half-step martial monarch. His raging ice flame palm is very refined, very horrifying. When Xiaoqin heard this, he could not help but be slightly stunned. He asked Bai Lishi, "What is that place? It seems like it is very lively there." Bai Lishi felt somewhat pleased as he said, "That is the point ranking. There is a formation on the jade wall that is connected to the jade pendant in our hands. As long as our points increase, it will immediately appear on the wall." Xiaoqin entered deep thought. No wonder the discussion was so intense. Since ancient times, there has been no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. Regardless of where one was, there was always a need to compete. I wonder what my ranking will be. Will I be able to make it into the top 20? Bai Lishi continued, "This can be considered a small ruse by the Divine Dragon Palace to motivate everyone. The top 20 will obtain a corresponding reward. Furthermore, the rewards seem to be rather precious." Xiaoqin found this strange. He said, "This rule is not very appropriate. Are they not afraid of people cheating? If a half-step martial monarch went to the periphery to kill demons, their points would increase explosively." Bai Lishi laughed and said, "That is true. However, do you think that is possible? Would you purposely go to the periphery to kill low-ranked demons for the sake of ranking?" Xiaoqin shook his head, indicating that he would not. He was here mainly to temper his killing qi. He wanted to comprehend saber techniques between life and death and raise his cultivation. How could he waste time for the so-called rewards? I understand now. This rule seems casual, but no one would waste time purposely raising their ranking. However, what is your ranking? Did you see my ranking? Xiaoqin asked after he understood. The cocky expression on Bai Lishi's face deepened. He chuckled and said, "I am untalented. I happen to be ranked 10th. I am also the only cultivator from the 4 nations to rank in the top 10. As for your ranking, haha. I looked up 2 months ago. It seems to be around the top 500. 2 months ago, Xiaoqin happened to be with Wu Quan and the others. At that time, he had been focused on observing the characteristics of the demons. He had not killed many demons, so it was not surprising that he had such a ranking." Seeing Xiaoqin remain silent, Bai Lishi patted his shoulder and said, "Don't be disheartened. You are alone. You will not be able to compete with me. Ranking 500 is already pretty good. Right now, there is an endless stream of people rushing over from the battlefield. There are at least 5,000 or 6,000 of them. At the very least, you will be able to suppress most of them. Come, I'll bring you to exchange your points. Tonight, I'll bring you to the spring brothel. It's my treat." Xiaoqin smiled and did not say anything as he followed Bai Lishi. There was an independent hall in the Great Hall. The words, "Exchange Room," were written on the door. That was the place to exchange points for spirit stones, spirit weapons, secret treasures, and all sorts of medicinal pills. The door was tightly shut. As only one person could enter at a time, there was a very long queue. No one had any special privileges, so they could only wait quietly. Xiaoqin had always been very patient. As he waited, he took the opportunity to size up the cultivators in the Great Hall. He did not feel bored. However, Bai Lishi was not as patient. When he saw the points on the jade pendant, he hated that he could not rush in immediately. Seeing Bai Lishi so impatient, Xiaoqin asked out of curiosity, "Old Bai, how many points do you have? Why are you so excited?" Bai Lishi laughed loudly and said, "Not much, not much. Just slightly more than 3,000 points. This is already my 3rd time exchanging." The moment Bai Lishi said that, the surrounding people immediately cast envious gazes at him. Obtaining more than 2,000 points by himself, and this was his 3rd time, was already a large sum. Some people recognized Bai Lishi and started discussing him in soft voices. This made Bai Lishi feel very carefree. Xiaoqin could not be bothered to look at his own points. When he heard what Bai Lishi said, he took out his jade pendant. He saw that the back of the jade pendant was filled with countless black dots. A rough count gave at least 10,000 points. In the time it took to brew a few cups of tea, it was Bai Lishi's turn. Bai Lishi smiled at Xiaochen and said, "I'll go in first. I'll wait for you to come out later. Hee hee. I'll treat you to some meat tonight." Bai Lishi had been here twice already, so he was familiar with the exchange process. Xiaochen did not have to wait for long before Bai Lishi walked out excitedly. He had a carefree smile on his face. 1 point can be exchanged for 10 medial-grade spirit stones. 10 points can be exchanged for 1 superior-grade spirit stone. This person obtained 3,000 points in one go. No wonder he is smiling so happily. Ha ha. The benefits of having 3,000 points are not worth it. The more points one has, the more good things one can obtain in one go. When the people behind Xiaochen saw the smile on Bai Lishi's face, they all felt envious. They had not even obtained 3,000 points in the past few months. After exchanging twice, Bai Lishi was still able to obtain more than 3,000 points. This was indeed heaven-defying. They could not help but feel envious. Filled with anticipation, Xiaochen pushed the door open and entered the exchange room. The room wasn't big, but it was well organized. There were rows of shelves on the 4 walls, and there were many compartments on the shelves. There were many treasures that were rarely seen. There were high-ranked spirit weapons, earth-ranked cultivation techniques and martial techniques, all sorts of natural treasures, spirit pills, and miraculous medicines. There were also some rare minerals that could only be found at the bottom of the sea: frost iron, demonic crystals, purple silver, essence gold, brilliant white steel, tidal jade, deep sea blood fiend stone, and many more. A long table made of white jade sat in the middle. 4 old men wearing purple robes with golden embroidery sat behind the table. They all had deep breaths and flourished qi and blood. When Xiaochen checked them, he found that they were great perfection half-step martial monarchs. The old man sitting in the middle had white hair and eyebrows. He had a peaceful expression. 4 azure flood dragons were embroidered on his purple robes, bearing their fangs and claws. He seemed to be a peak consummation half-step martial monarch. Chapter 5:17. The white-haired old man looked at Xiaochen and smiled gently. "Little friend, please have a seat. This must be your first time exchanging, right? If you have any questions, you can just ask me. Don't worry about not having enough time." Xiaochen sat across from the jade table and looked at the old man. He said, "Many thanks, senior. This is my jade pendant. This junior is Xiaochen." The old man received the jade pendant that Xiaochen handed over. When he saw the points on it, he could not help but feel astonished. 14,000 points. The old man muttered to himself, "Xiaochen. I don't think I've heard of this name before." There was no noble clan with the surname Xiao in the 4 seas. There did not seem to be a Xiao clan in the Great Jin nation either. The few super sects had never heard of any inheritors with the surname Xiao. However, the points that Xiaochen obtained were comparable to the noble clans of the Boundless Sea and the Evil Moon Pavilions by Zhan. However, the white-haired old man had seen many such hidden geniuses in his life. Although he was astonished, he did not find it too strange. The white-haired old man handed the jade pendant in his hand to the 3 old men beside him. They verified the points on the jade pendant and verified its authenticity. Let me explain the rules of the exchange first. 1 point can be exchanged for 10 medial-grade spirit stones. 10 points can be exchanged for 1 superior-grade spirit stone. That is the exchange of spirit stones. As for the other items, there is a form here. You can take a look. Xiaochen received the form and looked at it carefully. He discovered that the items in the form were all the treasures on the surrounding shelves. The points required for each treasure were written at the back. After looking through it carefully a few times, Xiaochen had a rough idea. He did not need medial-grade spirit stones now. He still had 2 million in his universe ring. What he needed more were superior-grade spirit stones. If he wanted to maintain a fast cultivation speed after he became a martial monarch, he would need to expend a large number of superior-grade spirit stones. This was considered saving for a rainy day. Aside from this, some spirit herbs that increased vital qi were also necessary items. Currently, Xiao Chen's pure vital qi was already 400,000 kilograms of force. After he reached great perfection of the firmament body tempering art, he should be able to achieve 500,000 kilograms of force. At that time, he would need to use spirit medicines to break through to 1,000,000 jin. Spirit medicines that were more than 1,000 years old would not be of much use to him. Only those that were more than 2,000 years old would have an effect. Just as Xiao Chen was about to make his exchange, he suddenly noticed something. Inferior grade spirit gathering pearls, 1,000 points each. After a pause, Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Then, he faced the old man in front and asked, "Senior, can you show me this inferior grade spirit gathering pearl? It's a small matter. Whatever you want to exchange, you can take a look at the goods in advance." The white-haired old man nodded and waved his hand. A brocade box flew down from the shelf behind Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen opened the brocade box and immediately revealed 4 round white pearls filled with spiritual energy. These were the inferior grade spirit gathering pearls. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. Indeed, it was as he had guessed. He also had 2 white spirit gathering pearls. Although he could feel the vast spiritual energy contained in them, he did not know what they were or what they were. Hence, he had never had the chance to use them. Unexpectedly, he found them here. The white-haired old man explained, "Spirit-gathering pearls are condensed by a martial sage powerhouse from thousands upon thousands of spirit stones by exhausting their own source energy. Naturally, those condensed from inferior-grade spirit stones are inferior-grade spirit-gathering pearls, those condensed from medial-grade spirit stones are medial-grade spirit-gathering pearls, and those condensed from superior-grade spirit stones are superior-grade spirit-gathering pearls. The higher the grade, the more source energy will be exhausted. Most martial sages are not willing to condense spirit-gathering pearls above medial grade. The exhaustion of source energy was different from the exhaustion of essence. Normally, spirit stones and medicinal pills could quickly replenish the depletion of source energy. However, if one's source energy was depleted, they would need at least a month to replenish it, perhaps even longer. This showed the preciousness of spirit-gathering pearls. They were condensed by a bona fide martial sage's source energy. How could they not be precious? Xiao Chen asked joyfully, "What are the uses of these spirit-gathering pearls? How do I use them? What do I need to pay attention to? Senior, can you give me some pointers?" The white-haired old man smiled and said, "It can't be considered pointers. Let me explain it simply. Spirit-gathering pearls are similar to spirit stones, they are used to assist cultivators in their cultivation. However, the effects of spirit-gathering pearls are much better. One inferior-grade spirit-gathering pearl is equivalent to several hundred superior-grade spirit stones. However, because the essence contained in the spirit-gathering pearl is too vast, cultivators below martial monarch cannot use it to cultivate normally. Otherwise, it will burst through the cultivator's dantian in an instant. However, it is good for breaking through bottlenecks. With the surging power of a river, one can break through the dam in an instant. When using it, place it on the Tianmen acupoint on the top of your head and use your pure yang energy to refine it into liquid. Then, let it flow into your body. Do not consume it. Otherwise, no matter how tough your body is, it will explode in an instant." After hearing the old man's explanation, Xiao Chen knew what he needed. He used 10,000 points to exchange for 10 spirit-gathering pearls. Then, he used the remaining 5,000 points to exchange for a 3,000-year-old monarch blood grass. The old man reminded Xiao Chen, "Little friend, with your current cultivation, you can use at most 5 spirit-gathering pearls. It would be a waste to exchange for so many." Xiao Chen thanked the other party for the reminder. However, he still insisted on exchanging for 10 spirit-gathering pearls. He was very clear about his own situation. Xiaoqin cultivated a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Furthermore, he had established a strong foundation when he broke through to Martial King. His cultivation could not be compared to that of an ordinary person. When Bai Lishi, who had been waiting outside for a long time, saw Xiaoqin come out, he immediately went over with a smile. Xiaoqin, let's go. I'll bring you to see the point ranking. Let's see if your elder brother has improved. Xiaoqin did not really want to go. He had just obtained the spirit-gathering pearls and was in a rush to test their effects. However, he could not resist Bai Lishi's enthusiasm, so he could only follow. Bai Lishi parted the crowd excitedly. He was tall and strong, no one could compete with him. Soon, he pushed his way to the front. Bai Lishi ignored the dissatisfaction of the others and excitedly looked for his name. His name was near the front, so he found it immediately. However, the smile on his face froze. Bai Lishi's name was ranked 11th on the Jade Wall. As for Xiaoqin, he was just ahead of him, ranked 10th. Damn it! How can this be? Bai Lishi was dumbfounded. Originally, he thought he would be able to suppress Xiaoqin. Who knew, Xiaoqin would surpass him without saying anything. Furthermore, Xiaoqin had snatched Bai Lishi's place from the top 10, pushing him out. Xiaoqin had not expected to be able to rank 10th. He felt surprised as well. However, he did not care too much about it. The point ranking was not a ranking of strength. The true experts faced the peak demons on the islands in the core region. It was extremely difficult to kill them. They could not even rank within the top 100 of the point ranking. However, no one would deny their strength. The ones at the top of the point ranking were all cultivators in the inner area. When these people worked in teams, they could achieve an effect that was greater than the sum of their parts. When Xiaoqin looked at the top of the point ranking, he saw a name that he was not familiar with. After asking around, he found out who it was. That was the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian. Since the point ranking began, he had been ranked first. In the past 3 months, more than 20,000 demons had died at his hands. As Xiaoqin continued looking, he found that the top 10 were all unfamiliar names. They should be the young cultivators of the boundless sea. However, the person in third place, Bai Zhan, attracted Xiaoqin's attention. Earlier, he had heard someone say that this person's raging flame frost palm was very refined. This was very similar to the yellow-robed cultivator that Xiaoqin met. If that was the case, then this would be interesting. The Evil Moon Pavilion's Bai Zhan. Xie Ziyuan was the second disciple of the Evil Moon Pavilion's pavilion master. This Bai Zhan was even stronger than him. He should be his senior brother. Xiaoqin wondered if this person was aware of the grudge between him and the Evil Moon Pavilion. If he was, it would be hard to avoid trouble. Xianyuan Zhantian is back. Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out in the hall. Everyone turned around and saw a young man wearing purple armor and a purple dragon cloak on his back walking in from the entrance of the hall. This person was no older than 20. He had handsome facial features and an oppressive aura gathered on his face. His eyes contained a hint of arrogance as he walked with a majestic gait. When this person arrived in front of the point ranking, the surrounding crowd immediately parted for him. He glanced at the point ranking and saw the 4 words, Xianyuan Zhantian, at the top of the point ranking. Xianyuan Zhantian's expression was neither complacent nor conceited. It was as if everything was as it should be, as if the first place was prepared for him. When Xiaoqin felt this person's aura, he felt astonished. This person was actually a great perfection half-step martial monarch. Xiaoqin wondered how this person cultivated. In terms of combat prowess, he was probably stronger than Bai Lishi. Ha ha! Xianyuan Zhantian, no matter how you look at it, you will not be able to maintain the first rank for long. Who was so bold to speak to Xianyuan Zhantian like that? Everyone could not help but feel curious. Xianyuan Zhantian was a true inheritor of the Divine Dragon Palace. As long as he did not fall, he would be the next master of the Divine Dragon Palace. half of the Eastern Sea would have to listen to him. When everyone looked up, they saw 4 youths wearing red, blue, green, and purple robes standing in a row at the entrance of the hall. They all had impressive appearances and were extraordinarily handsome. Unexpectedly, they were all small perfection half-step martial monarchs. Of the 4, the second from the left was the youth in azure robes. He was the most extraordinary. Like Xianyuan Zhantian, he was also a great perfection half-step martial monarch. The person who spoke earlier was this youth in azure robes. He looked at Xianyuan Zhantian mockingly. So, it is the Northern Sea's 4 young masters. No wonder they dare to challenge Xianyuan Zhantian. The 4 of them are qualified to do so. The Northern Sea's boundless sea is controlled by the 4 noble clans. These 4 people are the scions of their respective clans. In the future, they will be the rulers of the Northern Sea. They are Xianyuan Zhantian's competitors. The people in the surroundings who understood the situation discussed in whispers. Their gazes were filled with interest. When the outstanding talents of the 2 clans met, there might be a fierce battle in the hall. However, what surprised everyone was that the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian, did not even look at the green-robed young master's mockery. Xianyuan Zhantian only said indifferently, "If you have the ability, then take it." However, do you have the ability? Chapter 5:18. After the green-robed young master spoke, he laughed loudly and headed for the exchange room. He only showed his back to the green-robed young master, completely ignoring him. This angered the green-robed young master. He clenched his fist tightly, and his complexion turned ashen. He felt powerless but helpless. The purple-robed young master consoled the green-robed young master, "Big brother, just ignore him. You just advanced to great perfection half-step martial monarch. It is not too late to fight him after some time." The green-robed young master's gaze turned cold as he said, "This fellow is still as arrogant as ever. Does he really think that the Divine Dragon Palace is still the same as it was 5,000 years ago? Sooner or later, I will make him kneel and beg for mercy." Ha ha! Young master, stop boasting. You already lost to Xianyuan Zhantian once. You can forget about making a comeback in this lifetime. 7 youths wearing the same golden battle armor arrived at the entrance. They all had golden swords hanging at their waists. The 7 of them stood at the entrance together. The light in the hall was dazzling and dazzling. It seemed like the light in the hall was brighter because of these 7 people. The Western Sea's 7 knights are here as well. This is going to be very lively. We are still missing the Southern Sea's 4 heroes. If they really arrived, all the outstanding talents of the Boundless Sea's younger generation would be defeated. As the crowd discussed, 4 youths slowly walked in from a side door of the hall. There were both men and women. The 4 of them were very low profile. They did not look at the point ranking in the center and headed straight for the exchange room. However, the strong auras of the 4 could not be hidden from the cultivators in the hall. It really is the Southern Sea's 4 heroes. All the outstanding talents of the Boundless Sea's younger generation are here. The atmosphere between the Northern Sea's 4 young masters and the Western Sea's 7 heroes was not friendly. However, the green-robed young master endured it in the end. He looked coldly at the leader of the 7 before heading for the exchange room as well. Unexpectedly, there were so many strong geniuses in the Boundless Sea. There were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers everywhere. They were much stronger than the youths of the 4 nations. With such strength, probably only the peak geniuses of the Great Gene Nation could compare to them. There is still a gap between me and them. However, this is just the beginning. As long as I am not a martial monarch, I can hold my own against them. From these people, Xiaoqin could see the gap between them. However, he did not feel discouraged. His blood surged with fighting spirit, his ambition undying. However, these people had all returned from the battlefield at the same time. It was a little strange, and it was hard to describe it as a coincidence. Bai Lishi had already recovered from his earlier disappointment. When he saw Xiao Chen's solemn expression, he thought that these people had overshadowed him, causing him to be depressed. Xiao Chen consoled, "Don't overthink. In the ancient desolate land, you are the center of attention. However, in the boundless sea, you are nothing." Ever since the destruction of the Tianwu dynasty, the 9 dragon veins left the Tianwu continent. Aside from the great Jin nation, the spiritual energy of the other nations is not very good. The spiritual energy of the endless sea hasn't changed much since ancient times. In addition, these guys all have super forces behind them. They grew up eating heavenly treasures, so the treasures they have are stronger than yours. As the saying goes, they eat better than you, dress better than you, and live in better places. Furthermore, this is the era of geniuses. Their talents are not bad either. It is reasonable that they are stronger than you now. However, this is just the beginning. You still have a chance to catch up to peak martial monarchs. Once you become a martial monarch, you will all be on the same starting line. Xiao Chen smiled helplessly to himself. Although Bai Lishi liked to show off occasionally, he was still a friend in the end. Thank you. However, I really do not care about this. Don't you think that it is too much of a coincidence for these people to return at the same time? When Bai Lishi heard this, he was stunned. Coincidence? What coincidence? Right after Bai Lishi spoke, he thought about it and understood what Xiao Chen meant. Unless they had no other choice, no one would return to the main camp during the experiential training on the battlefield. They could settle some minor matters on the outpost islets. There was no pattern to when they would return. However, today, the outstanding talents of the boundless sea all returned on the same day as if they had discussed it beforehand. This was indeed too much of a coincidence. Xiao Chen continued, "There is no harm in being prepared. Let's not go out for the next few days. At the very least, we can only leave after all these people have left." The two chatted for a while before they took their leave. Bai Lishi wanted to repair his secret treasure and Xiao Chen wanted to find a place to test out the power of the spirit-gathering pearls. Xiao Chen left the hall. Not long after, he ran into someone. He could not help but stop. It was the yellow-robed cultivator that he met a few days ago. When the yellow-robed cultivator saw Xiao Chen coming out of the hall, his expression froze. The Evil Moon Pavilion's Baijan. The white-robed bladesman, Xiao Chen. The two exchanged glances before asking probingly at the same time. It looked like while Xiao Chen was trying to figure out the other party's identity, the yellow-robed cultivator was trying to figure out Xiao Chen's identity as well. The yellow-robed cultivator, Baijan, smiled gently and said, "If I could confirm your identity back then, you would not be standing here now." Baijan's tone was calm, and his expression was gentle. However, the meaning behind his words was overbearing. He did not care about Xiao Chen at all. It was like he could squash Xiao Chen to death at any moment. Xiao Chen retorted with a smile, "Back then, your movement technique was excellent as well. You came and went without a trace. You have already grasped the essence of leaving no trace." Naturally, Baijan could tell that Xiao Chen was mocking him for being cowardly and running away without a fight. Baijan's lips curled up in a smile. He said indifferently, "Good luck. You had best not run into me on the battlefield. The pavilion master already gave the order. If I do not kill you, I will not be able to obtain the position of pavilion master. Although I don't care about the position of pavilion master, I don't mind using your head to repay his kindness." After Baijan spoke, he flicked his sleeves and leaped over Xiao Chen's body, heading for the palace doors with large strides. Baijan was a small perfection half-step martial monarch. However, the combat prowess he displayed could rival that of a great perfection half-step martial monarch. Baijan's martial technique, which was an extreme attribute of ice and fire, inspired fear in others. The most important thing was that this person was very cautious. He had thought things through, knew when to advance and retreat, and knew how to endure. It would be fine if Baijan did not make a move. Once he made a move, he would be confident of victory. Xiaochen compared his own strength with Baijian's. He discovered that Baijian's overall combat prowess was much stronger than his. At the very least, Xiaochen would not dare to fight against 20-odd high-ranked winged demons at the same time. Being targeted by this person would be problematic. Xiaochen had to quickly raise his cultivation to superior grade martial king. Otherwise, he would only have a 40% chance of victory. After leaving the palace, Xiaochen spent a large sum of money to find a secluded courtyard on the divine dragon warship, far away from the crowd. Xiao. When Xiaochen arrived at the courtyard, Leng Yu immediately rushed out of the spirit blood jade. Xiaochen pointed to a side room and said, "You can stay there for the next few days. I will not be going out in the short term." Leng Yu thanked Xiaochen. After that, she said, "That person is much stronger than you. Although he looked casual, he is actually determined to kill you. You must be careful of this person." The Eros demons were good at reading people's hearts. Outside the palace, Baijian spoke casually. The smile on his face never faded. However, the killing intent hidden in his heart could not be hidden from a high-ranked demon like Leng Yu. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "I always know my limits. He is very strong, but he is not strong enough to make me stay. You don't have to bother about this." Leng Yu felt the confidence in Xiaochen's words. She did not say anything more and headed to her room. In her room, Xiaochen took out 12 inferior grade spirit gathering pearls from his universe ring and placed them on the wooden table. Finally, he took out 2 blue spirit gathering pearls. He had obtained the blue spirit gathering pearls from the Savannah King's burial goods. When he placed the white spirit gathering pearls next to the blue spirit gathering pearls, it was clear who was superior. Be it the color or the spiritual energy they contained, they were far inferior. They were clearly not of the same grade. Xiaochen played with the 2 blue spirit gathering pearls in his hand for a while before putting them away. Xiaochen thought to himself, the blue spirit gathering pearls should be superior grade. However, now is not the time to use them. Let's test the might of the white spirit gathering pearls first. Xiaochen took out a white spirit gathering pearl and carefully placed it on the Tianmen acupoint on his head. Then, he sat cross-legged on a prayer mat. Although the white-haired old man from the Divine Dragon Palace said that those below Martial Monarch could not use the spirit-gathering pearls to cultivate, Xiaochen believed that his situation was special and that there should not be any problems. Xiaochen had been stuck at peak medial grade Martial King for a long time. If his cultivation was compared to a bottle, this bottle was constantly expanding. Xiaochen consumed more than 20 medial grade spirit stones every day. Coupled with the heaven-ranked cultivation technique and the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer, his cultivation speed was very fast. However, he had not reached the bottleneck of medial grade Martial King. The bottle continued to expand. Xiaochen could still advance further as a medial grade Martial King. This was a blessing. If others had Xiaochen's cultivation, they would have already advanced to peak superior grade Martial King long ago. However, Xiaochen was still climbing step by step as a medial grade Martial King. He could not see the end point, it was so far away. With such a large foundation, once Xiaochen advanced to half-step Martial Monarch, even the older generation experts who had been stuck at half-step Martial Monarchs for decades would not have any advantage over him. It is time to use a strong medicine. Even if there are risks, I have to bear them. I do not have time to stay here any longer. Those outstanding talents of the boundless sea are all stronger than me. Baijian is also eyeing me like a tiger waiting to take my life. I already have no way out. I have to charge forward. I have to keep charging forward. After Xiaochen made up his mind, he steeled himself. He no longer hesitated. He closed his eyes and circulated his lightning-attributed pure yang-attributed energy above his head. Who? As time went by, strands of white smoke came out of Xiaochen's head. The white spirit gathering pearl finally started to melt. Xiaochen remained calm. He was not in a rush to let the white liquid flow into his body. He sent out some essence and let the white liquid float quietly above his head. Chapter 5:19. After 1 hour, the spirit-gathering pearl turned into a ball of liquid flickering with spiritual light. It floated quietly above Xiao Chen's head. Some of the spiritual energy leaking out of the spiritual liquid turned into a white mist, spreading throughout Xiao Chen's room. A fragrance immediately assaulted the nose. The spiritual light was very moving. With just a gentle sniff, one would feel refreshed and refreshed. Xiao Chen carefully extracted a grain-sized drop of spiritual liquid from the glowing spiritual liquid. Then, he dripped it into his Tianmen acupoint. Xiao Chen had to be bold and careful in everything he did. He could not act rashly because of lofty aspirations. He could not think that he had the halo of a main character and could never die. Xiao Chen's Dantian, the Chanzhong acupoint on his chest, and the Tianmen acupoint on his head formed a central axis, separating his body into two. That was the most important of the 9 main meridians. Boom! The moment the grain-sized drop of spiritual liquid came into contact with Xiao Chen's scalp, it immediately poured into the acupoint and turned into a ferocious flood. It was like a waterfall falling from the 9 heavens. It passed through the Tianmen acupoint and the Chanzhong acupoint, carrying 5 tons of force as it entered the Dantian. The energy contained in the spiritual liquid was too vast. The speed at which it fell was very fast. Xiao Chen did not have time to react at all. He immediately felt panic in his heart. The qi whirlpool in his Dantian was like a small pebble under a waterfall. When the spiritual energy fell, it gave off a loud sound. Xiao Chen's internal organs immediately turned upside down, his heart was in intense pain. Pu ci. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and vomited a large mouthful of blood. He had been caught off guard and was significantly injured. That was not all. The essence controlling the spiritual liquid also lost its air for a short period of time. It instantly poured into Xiao Chen's body. The energy of the grain-sized drop of spiritual liquid was extremely horrifying. Xiao Chen found it hard to endure. When this large ball of spiritual liquid fell, it was like the water of an entire river poured in. It was more than 100 times more powerful than any waterfall. The energy fluctuations generated by the explosion were enough to blast Xiao Chen to pieces from the inside, killing him without a burial. The situation suddenly became very dangerous. As long as that ball of spiritual liquid fell into the cyclone, it would definitely cause an explosion, and Xiao Chen would definitely die. Bang! The spirit liquid landed on the cyclone and a loud bang echoed inside Xiao Chen's body. At this moment, the purple spirit liquid inside the cyclone completely exploded. The purple liquid was the essence cultivation Xiao Chen had cultivated over the years. In terms of power and storage capacity, it was even larger than the white liquid. The 2 types of spiritual liquids converged in an instant and surged wildly in Xiao Chen's body. They were like wild horses that had lost control. This caused Xiao Chen's already injured lungs to become even more injured. If this terrifying energy could not find a place to vent, it would directly blow up Xiao Chen's body. I can't die. Xiao Chen did not lose all hope. At this critical moment of life and death, his mind was incredibly calm. The 12 acupoints on his left and right arms that could close freely were quickly opened. The wild horse-like energy in Xiao Chen's body found an outlet to vent and immediately surged out from his arms. Boom! 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 24 streams of dragon-shaped qi came out from the acupoints. Amidst the dragon roars, the 24 streams of qi immediately blasted Xiao Chen's room into fragments. Then, the fragments turned into dust. Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. Immediately, he felt a boundless pain and vomited a large mouthful of blood. Xiao Chen, who was extremely pale, could no longer hold on and fainted. Xiao! The instant the dragon qi appeared, Leng Yu, who was in the side room, felt an intense aura. At the same time, she felt an intense pain in her chest. This was something that would happen when the master of the spirit blood jade was in a life-or-death situation. Len Yu rushed out and headed for Xiao Chen's room. However, just as Len Yu reached the door, she saw 24 blue dragons come out from the room. Xiao Chen's room immediately turned into dust. An intense shock wave surged over and Len Yu quickly leaped up. When she landed, the entire courtyard no longer existed, it had been reduced to rubble. When Len Yu found Xiao Chen's body in the rubble and saw the spirit-gathering pearls scattered on the ground, her expression changed greatly. She said with some resentment, "A martial monarch already refined his essence into quintessence. That is why he dared to use the spirit-gathering pearls. This fellow is really suicidal. Even if he wanted to use it, he should have told me first." Boom! At this moment, a wooden coffin slowly rose from the ruins of the courtyard, and the lid of the coffin fell down. The scarred man walked out and looked at the unconscious Xiao Chen. He smiled sinisterly and said, "I originally thought I would have to put in a lot of effort. I did not expect things to be so simple." Len Yu turned her head and looked at the scarred man slowly walking out of the rubble. Her expression did not change much. In the inner area of the battlefield, Xiao Chen frequently met with cultivators who wanted to target him. After he crippled these people, Xiao Chen handed them over to Len Yu to deal with. After absorbing the yang essence of so many cultivators, Len Yu had already recovered some of her strength. She would not be like when she met the middle-aged swordsman, where her charm technique broke and she lost all her combat prowess. Hey! Suddenly, Len Yu felt the aura of a demonic spirit from the scarred man. She muttered, "It is actually someone from the Dark Church." The scarred man looked at Len Yu. Originally, he did not pay much attention to her. However, when he saw the slender tail behind her, he could not help but frown. This brat actually has an Eros demon by his side. The Dark Church was founded on demons. Naturally, they worshipped the demon god of the deep abyss. Even now, it was still the same. Every person who joined the Dark Church had to place their mental imprint on the demon god statue and swear on their heart demons to be loyal to the demon god for life. Only by doing this could one turn their martial spirit into a demonic spirit and obtain great strength. At the same time, they could learn the demonic race's martial techniques and martial techniques. Of course, cultivators with naturally mutated martial spirits did not count. However, the scarred man was not one of them. Hence, he placed his mental imprint on the demon god statue. He had to be loyal to the demon god. One of the rules was not to kill demons. If he killed demons, he would be disloyal to the demon god and would suffer the backlash of his heart demons. Back then, when the scarred man swore on his heart demons, he did not care too much. After all, the demonic calamity had passed many years ago. Demons were very far away from him. Such rules were useless to him. However, he did not expect that the person the vice sect master wanted to kill today would have an Eros demon by his side. After thinking for a long time, the scarred man looked at Len Yu and said expressionlessly, "Move aside. Don't block me from doing what I want to do. Although I cannot kill you, I can still severely injure you." The scarred man did not have any true loyalty to the demon god. He was only doing this for the sake of gaining strength. He did not have any respect for demons, he only found them troublesome. Len Yu smiled gently and said in a gentle voice, "No." These were just 3 simple words. However, when Len Yu said them, they sounded very flirtatious. Even the resolute scarred man felt somewhat dazed. The scarred man steeled his resolve and got rid of that daze. He said coldly, "Good. You actually dared to use a charm technique on me. In that case, you were the one who made the first move. If I accidentally killed you, you will be fine." The scarred man had a demonic spirit and was very strong. He was also a half-step martial monarch. However, with his demonic spirit, he could rival a human Tianwu realm cultivator. A regular half-step martial monarch would not be a match for him. Hence, the scarred man thought very highly of himself. He did not care about Xiao Chen at all. The Eros demon did not care about him at all. The corners of Leng Yu's lips curled up slightly. When she saw the wooden coffin behind the scarred man, she had a playful expression on her face. She smiled and said, "I wonder which layer of the coffin evasion technique you have cultivated to. I hope you can still return." After she spoke, she started to form complicated and ancient hand seals. Her expression turned very grave and the purple mark on her forehead glowed. An ancient and distant aura spread out from her body. The scarred man felt an indescribable sense of danger. He quickly took 3 steps back and formed hand seals as well. 8 wooden coffins slowly rose from the courtyard. The wooden coffins contained rank 4 demonic corpses specially refined by the Dark Church. A rank 4 demonic corpse was strong enough to fight a peak superior grade martial king. Furthermore, the corpses were specially tempered. Ordinary martial techniques would not be able to harm the demonic corpses. With 8 demonic corpses, the scarred man could find an opportunity to kill a great perfection half-step martial monarch. Leng Yu completed her hand seals before the scarred man could. A dazzling purple mark appeared between her palms and she pushed it forward. The purple seal exploded, forming a formation with many complicated lines in the air above the courtyard. The formation glowed with a purple light, enveloping the knife-scarred man and the 8 wooden coffins within it. The scarred man's expression changed drastically. He said in astonishment, "This is the great exorcism mark, a high-ranked martial technique of the demon race. How can an insignificant Eros demon like you grasp it?" Before he finished speaking, the light on the spirit formation grew even more dazzling. When the light reached its peak, the spirit formation began to emit even more dazzling light. When the light reached its peak, the 8 wooden coffins, which had only appeared halfway, all retreated. A strong suction came from the scarred man's wooden coffin, trying to suck him back in. That suction was incredibly strong, comparable to a strong wind. The scarred man's face was filled with dissatisfaction. He half knelt on the ground and stabbed his fingers into the ground. Chi! Chi! However, he still could not resist the suction. His 10 fingers left long marks on the ground. The scarred man's expression became even more horrified. The exorcism mark could knock a demon back into the demonic world. There were 18 layers of the demonic world. No matter which layer the scarred man entered, he would not have a good time in the future. Although the scarred man had joined the Dark Church, he was still a human. He still wanted to enjoy the colorful world of humans. How could he get used to it after entering the demonic world? Furthermore, every layer of the demonic world was filled with danger. As a human, it would be difficult for the scarred man to establish himself. However, no matter how much the scarred man resisted, it was to no avail. The light of the formation became even more dazzling. In the end, the scarred man could no longer resist and was pulled back into the wooden coffin. Pa! The coffin lid on the ground instantly closed. Leng Yu pointed at the air and the purple great exorcism mark immediately pressed down on the wooden coffin. The formation caused the wooden coffin to vanish into the rubble of the courtyard. After doing all this, Leng Yu looked at the 10 finger marks on the ground. She rolled her eyes and rubbed the finger marks, making everything in the courtyard look exactly the same as when it was in ruins. Chapter 520. 3 days later, Xiao Chen, who was lying on the ground, finally woke up. Cough! Cough! Xiao Chen opened his eyes weakly and coughed violently a few times. Then, he struggled to sit up from the ground. Xiao Chen checked his body with his consciousness. He could not help but reveal a bitter smile on his pale face. Although most of the spiritual energy from that day had already leaked out from the 24 acupoints, the vast amount of spiritual energy that remained in his body still caused significant damage. Xiao Chen's heart, liver, spleen, lungs, kidneys, large and small intestines, stomach, and gallbladder, all his internal organs were severely injured. Every slight movement caused intense pain. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's meridians did not suffer much damage. His meridians had been specially tempered by the dragon and tiger body tempering art and the firmament body tempering art. His meridians were already as tough as frost iron and as hard as a mountain rock. At the same time, they were as soft as autumn water. His meridians were already hard and soft at the same time. It was very difficult for him to receive true damage. However, the thing that dismayed Xiaoqin the most was that the essence in his body was completely drained. It was completely drained, with nothing left. Even if he wanted to use his essence to alleviate the pain, he could not do so. No matter how intense a battle was, cultivators would always leave some essence for themselves. This was because only with essence could they complete a cycle of cultivation and quickly replenish their essence. If one's essence was completely drained, it would be very difficult to recover. No matter how powerful the medicinal pill was, it would be useless. One could only wait for the dantian to naturally produce a strand of essence. Only then would there be an effect. This time, I really ruined myself. Xiaoqin sighed to himself. In the end, cultivation could not be done with brute force. Xiaoqin looked at Leng Yu. She had a calm expression as she looked at the sky. It seemed like she did not notice the awakened Xiaoqin. Speaking of which, is the sky very nice? When I woke up, I did not even want to look at it. Leng Yu withdrew her gaze and smiled sweetly. How can that be? I did not notice. Then, she ran over and helped Xiaoqin up. Xiaoqin really could not stand up. Leng Yu could clearly feel the pain on Xiaoqin's face when she helped him up. You've suffered such heavy injuries. I'm afraid this trial is about to end. Xiaoqin smiled faintly when he heard this. He let go of Leng Yu's hand and said, "End? You're looking down on me too much. This bit of internal injury is still within the range of what I can consume. Don't even think about it." Leng Yu muttered to herself, "I am showing concern out of goodwill, but this fellow still does not understand." Half a day later, Xiaoqin regained his basic ability to move. Leng Yu finally understood what Xiaoqin meant when he said he could afford it. First, Xiaoqin spent 300,000 medial-grade spirit stones to buy a bottle of rank 9 healing medicine from the Divine Dragon Warship's medicinal store. The Dragon Fragrance Clear Cloud pill specialized in treating internal injuries. It had an excellent effect on Xiaoqin's injuries. That medicinal store was opened by a merchant association under the Divine Dragon Palace. There would definitely be cultivators injured during the trial. Hence, business was booming. They also had all sorts of herbs. After buying the healing medicine, it was still not enough. Xiaoqin spent another 100,000 medial-grade spirit stones to buy a blood circulation mushroom that replenished blood essence. This blood circulation mushroom was 2,000 years old. That day, Xiaoqin vomited a few mouthfuls of blood. Furthermore, it was not the usual blood clots from internal injuries. Instead, it was the blood essence of the human body. When one's blood essence flourished, one's qi and blood would flourish. One would feel refreshed and full of energy, doing anything with vigor. When one's blood essence was insufficient, one's qi and blood would weaken. One's complexion would turn yellow, and one would become dispirited. One would be out of breath with just a little intense exercise. Hence, Xiaoqin had to replenish his blood essence. Furthermore, it had to be a great supplement. He had to replenish it in the shortest time possible. Hence, he had to be willing to spend spirit stones. Xiaoqin bought a blood circulation mushroom and a few other similar spirit herbs that were 2,000 years old. 300,000 medial-grade spirit stones were gone, just like that. Xiaoqin felt that it was still insufficient. So, he bought some 1,000-year-old sea cucumbers. Sea cucumbers were a spirit herb unique to the boundless sea. They were very useful for recovering from internal injuries. When used together with the Dragon Fragrance Azure Cloud pill, the effects would be even better. When Xiaoqin walked out of the shop, the boss of the shop sent him off. The smile on his face was like a flower, he was clearly very excited. It was impossible not to be excited. On this trip, Xiaochen had spent a total of 1 million medial-grade spirit stones. That was equivalent to the boss's monthly sales. Originally, with Xiaochen's physique and some low-grade spirit herbs, he would be able to recover from his severe injuries in at most a month, even though he was severely injured. However, what Xiaochen lacked now was time. He had 30 days in a month. How could he afford to waste so much time? Furthermore, he had a feeling that something big would happen in a few days. Hence, Xiaochen had to recover within 3 days. He could only spend spirit stones to buy time. No matter how big the price was, he would not reject it. Ling Yu, who was beside Xiaochen, wore a pink dress. She also had a black and white robe draped over her back, covering her tail. She also wore a veil that covered her face. This way, no one would know that she was an Eros demon. This was a method that Ling Yu had thought of in the past few days. This way, she would not have to remain in the spirit blood jade. After returning to the courtyard that Xiaochen rented, Ling Yu clicked her tongue and said, "Young Master Xiao, I could not tell that you were actually so rich. No wonder you dared to speak so boldly, not bothering with such a small injury. However, I do not know how many more times you can do this. Spirit gathering pearls are not that easy to absorb." Xiaochen's expression changed slightly. He looked at Ling Yu and said, "You seem to be implying something." Ling Yu smiled and nodded. "That's right. I know how to let you absorb spirit gathering pearls normally. However, you have to agree to a few conditions of mine." Xiaochen shook his head slightly and did not say anything. Then, he headed for his room. Xiaochen did not intend to touch the spirit gathering pearl for now. It was as the white-haired old man said. That thing could only be used when breaking through to the martial king realm. Xiaochen had oversimplified the problem earlier. It was not a problem of whether the dantian could contain the spiritual energy. Instead, it was whether the dantian could withstand the force of the river that seemed to fall from the 9 heavens. Only when one reached a bottleneck would the dantian require a large amount of vital qi to break through the bottleneck. At that time, the dantian's endurance would be very strong. No matter how much strength a cultivator used, they would not be able to break through. This was the meaning of the so-called bottleneck. Only at such a time could one withstand the impact of the spiritual liquid from the spirit-gathering pearls. The stronger the impact, the better. However, even at such a time, the danger was not small. Once he failed, he would most likely die. Xiaochen guessed that not many people would dare to use the spirit-gathering pill. This was because the price of failure was too high. Xiaochen did not believe that Ling Yu would have a way to use such a dangerous thing. Furthermore, demons were very cunning. How could he completely trust her words? He did not want to experience such a situation again. When Ling Yu saw Xiaochen leave without even turning his head back, she thought that Xiaochen felt that she had raised too many conditions. She quickly said, "I don't need a few conditions, just 3 conditions will do." Two is fine as well. Don't go. One should be fine, right? I'll tell you how to use the spirit-gathering pearl. You have to promise me one condition. Ling Yu chased after Xiaochen. She said this somewhat angrily. Her face was red under the veil. Xiaochen turned his head back and looked at Ling Yu suspiciously. He said, "Do you really know the correct way to use the spirit-gathering pearl?" Seeing that Xiaochen was looking down on her, Ling Yu was unconvinced. She said, "Naturally, I know. I also know how to deal with the corpse demonic fish and witch fiends at the bottom of the sea. I was about to tell you about it, but you did not let me out. If you had asked me in advance, you would not have ended up in such a miserable state," Ling Yu muttered to herself. "I even helped you chase away a big problem." Xiaochen nodded and said, "Good, I believe you. State your conditions first." Conditions? What conditions should I state?" Ling Yu felt somewhat anxious. The conditions cannot be too simple. Otherwise, he will know that I am helping him on purpose. It cannot be too difficult. If I cannot do it, he will definitely reject me. Damn it! Why is this fellow so straightforward? It is so difficult for me to think of a condition. Xiaochen looked at Leng Yu strangely. She lowered her head and clenched her fists tightly. He did not know what she was thinking. After a while, Leng Yu raised her head and asked depressedly, I have not thought of it yet. What should I do? Xiaochen was slightly stunned. However, he did not pay too much attention to it. He only thought that the other party was trying to maximize her benefits. There is no rush. 3 days is enough for you to think about it. By then, my injuries should have more or less recovered. When Xiaochen returned to his room, he placed the peak-grade spirit herbs that he had bought at the medicinal hall on the table. Then, he divided them into 2 categories. One was to replenish essence blood, and the other was to heal internal injuries. Internal injuries and replenishing essence blood could not be done at the same time. There was a sequence. He had to heal his internal injuries first before replenishing essence blood. Otherwise, if he forcefully replenished essence blood with his severely injured body, his weakened internal organs would not be able to endure the vigorous qi and blood. His injuries would worsen. When Xiaochen saw the table full of spirit herbs, he felt a pang in his heart. 1 million medial-grade spirit stones was not easy to come by. Right now, Xiaochen only had about 1.7 million medial-grade spirit stones in his universe ring. Of the 700,000 medial-grade spirit stones he needed for his cultivation, he only had 1 million left. After taking a deep breath, Xiaochen picked up the dragon fragrance azure cloud pill on the table. He opened the bottle cap, and a dragon-shaped medicinal fragrance immediately wafted out. Xiaochen took a gentle sniff and the dragon-shaped fragrance split into 2, entering his body and circulating around his chest. Then, it circulated in his chest and turned into a liquid that dripped onto his liver and spleen. It was like sweet nectar, instantly alleviating much of Xiaochen's pain. A rank 9 medicinal pill truly lives up to its name. Just a strand of medicinal fragrance has such an effect. It is indeed worthy of the title of holy medicine. Xiaochen revealed a joyful smile. Originally, he had many doubts about these medicinal pills. He was worried that he would not be able to recover completely within 3 days. Now, it looked like there would not be any problems. Xiaochen no longer hesitated. He took out the medicinal pill and swallowed it together with the 1,000-year-old sea cucumber. Immediately, Xiaochen felt a strong sense of drowsiness and immediately fell asleep. During the night, the medicinal pill completely permeated Xiaochen's internal organs. As he fell into a deep sleep, the medicinal pill anxiously healed his internal injuries. The next day, Xiaochen opened his eyes and stretched his legs. Then, he was shocked to discover that his internal injuries were already mostly healed. 1 million medial-grade spirit stones, it was worth it. Xiaochen felt very carefree. All the depression from the pain was swept away. Chapter 521. After another 2 days, Xiaochen's internal injuries were completely healed. His blood essence was strong and his qi and blood flourished. His face glowed, and he was in high spirits. He had completely recovered to his peak state. Dong! 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 There was knocking on the door. Xiaochen calmed down. It should be Leng Yu. When he opened the door, he saw the alluring Leng Yu standing outside. She smiled and said, I have thought of the terms. Xiaochen nodded gently and asked interestedly, what is it? Leng Yu said softly, change the 1-year period to half a year. According to their initial agreement, Leng Yu needed to stay by Xiaochen's side for a year to help him grasp the state of massacre. Now, 3 months had passed. If it was changed to half a year, there were only 3 months left. Xiaochen thought for a while and said softly, 9 months. Help me for 9 months. At that time, regardless of whether I have grasped the state of massacre or not, I will let you go. Sure, 9 months it is. Contrary to Xiao Chen's expectations, Lin Yu did not try to haggle. She quickly agreed to Xiao Chen's terms and handed him an alchemic recipe. Xiao Chen received the alchemic recipe and took a look. There were many precious herbs recorded on it. According to a certain ratio, they could be used to make a special medicinal liquid, the exquisite 7-aperture fluid. Lin Yu explained, the spiritual liquid in the spirit-gathering pearl is very vast. Only when one is a martial monarch and has cultivated their essence into quintessence can one withstand the impact. If one wants to absorb it when one is a martial king, one has to dilute the spiritual liquid with the exquisite 7-aperture fluid. Then, fill the bathtub with clean water and sprinkle the petals of the heavenly demon flower. After you jump into the bathtub, you will be able to absorb it. Xiao Chen looked at the alchemic recipe carefully and frowned slightly. He said, the things on this are not cheap. One bottle of the exquisite 7-aperture fluid costs about 500,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Lin Yu's expression was very calm. She said softly, cultivation requires resources. Without resources, you will not be able to get injured. Without resources, you will not be able to cultivate quickly. In the demonic world, only some of the royal clans know this alchemic recipe. In the demonic world, only the royal clans can afford it. You just need to buy the ingredients. I will make the exquisite 7-aperture fluid for you. Otherwise, the horrifying failure rate will make you bankrupt. Xiao Chen grasped the alchemic recipe tightly. He looked at Lin Yu and asked, Lin Yu, I should believe you. Of course you have to trust me. Right now, there are powerful enemies who want to kill you. If you die, I won't be able to live either. Lin Yu spoke with an extremely serious expression. As she spoke, a faintly discernible air of nobility was being emitted from her body. 2 days later, Xiao Chen went to all the medicinal stores on the Divine Dragon warship. Then, he went to the free market for cultivators for a long time. Finally, he managed to gather 20% of the ingredients for the alchemic recipe. Xiao Chen spent 1 million medial-grade spirit stones just like that. Even Xiao Chen lamented his own squandering. In less than a week, he had spent 2 million medial-grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen hoped that he would be able to fulfill his wish. Otherwise, his losses would be too great. 1,000-year-old snake blood flower, Dead Sea mushroom, magic blood crystal, demonic monarch grass, poison stump fruit. Lin Yu was in her room, taking inventory of the various natural treasures that Xiao Chen had bought. She carefully checked the quality of every ingredient. Her expression was very serious and meticulous. Furthermore, her eyes were very sharp and her methods were very experienced. She managed to find a few spirit herbs that did not meet the requirements. How can a snake blood flower be 1,000 years old? It can only be used for 900 years. When determining the age of a spirit herb, you cannot just look at its growth rings. The snake blood flower grows in the stomach of a snake for its first 100 years. Those 100 years do not count. You will have to buy another one. One of the Dead Sea mushrooms has already withered. The person who sold you used spiritual liquid to nourish it. After 12 hours, the spiritual liquid will be used up and it will be useless. The spirit herbs in Lin Yu's alchemic recipe were very rare. They were not recorded in the compendium of cultivation. Hence, Xiao Chen fell for this trick. When Xiao Chen heard Lin Yu's words, he did not feel uncomfortable. He made a mental note of it. He felt like he had learned a lot. Lin Yu sorted out the spirit herbs that did not meet the requirements. Then, she looked at Xiao Chen and said unhurriedly, you have to buy these again. You wasted 200,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen swept the spirit herbs that did not meet the requirements into his universe ring. He said indifferently, it is not really a waste. Naturally, I will make the person who cheated me pay double. Wait a little longer. Lin Yu did not have to wait for long. 4 hours later, Xiao Chen returned, filled with killing qi. Then, he took out 2 sets of spirit herbs that he originally wanted to buy. I will take my leave first. I will not disturb you from refining the exquisite 7-aperture fluid. Ling Yu stopped Xiao Chen and said, "There is no need for you to leave. I need your help. Refining the exquisite 7-aperture fluid is not a secret. How much you can learn will depend on your own ability." Bang! Right after Ling Yu spoke, she waved her hand and a cauldron appeared in the air. The azure-black cauldron was about the height of 2 adults. It was very large and there were dragons and phoenixes carved on it. Many talisman scripts were carved on it, giving off a spiritual light. At the top of the cauldron, there was a smooth, transparent, and crystalline mirror floating above the cauldron. Below the cauldron, there was a crystal board with a large formation carved on it. A small strand of white flame floated quietly in the center of the formation. All this was an eye-opener for Xiao Chen. This was almost exactly the same as the cauldron that immortals used to refine medicinal pills and treasures in the Compendium of Cultivation. When Xiao Chen looked at the pure and charming Ling Yu again, a huge wave stirred in his heart. Perhaps Ling Yu's identity was even more incredible than he had imagined. Xiao. The purple mark on Ling Yu's forehead glistened brightly. She flicked her finger and sent a beam of dim light at the crystal board. Boom! The white flame floating in the center of the formation exploded. The blazing flame started to burn intensely. However, the burning flame did not raise the surrounding temperature. Instead, a cold wind blew. Instead, it made one feel a chill. Xiao Chen knew that this white flame was probably a high-ranked inattributed flame. As for what kind of inattributed flame it was, only Ling Yu knew. The raging golden light mirror floats above the cauldron. Originally, it could absorb the flames of the sun during the day and use it. However, this is the deep-sea battlefield. The sun is blocked by the demonic clouds. Hence, we need to borrow your purple thunder true fire. Xiao Chen nodded to indicate that he understood. A purple flame gathered in his right eye and turned into a purple dragon that swam into the raging golden light mirror. The transparent surface of the mirror instantly refined the purple dragon into a pure inattributed flame. It gave off a dazzling golden light. Ling Yu opened the lid of the cauldron and placed the various ingredients into it. The sound of splashing water came from the cauldron. It looked like she had filled the cauldron with clean water in advance. Ling Yu placed the lid back on and pointed at the raging golden light mirror. Immediately, a beam of golden light shot out from the mirror and penetrated the barrier of the cauldron, entering the cauldron. At this moment, Ling Yu had already closed her eyes. As the yin and yang flames intertwined, she focused on refining the herbs in the cauldron. The purple mark on Ling Yu's forehead flickered. An ancient and noble aura came from her body, sweeping away her usual charm. After refining the herbs for 6 hours, Ling Yu opened her eyes again. A purple vertical eye opened in the depths of her eyes and gave off 2 beams of dim light. She started the final step of the refinement. Boom! The dim light vanished, and Ling Yu waved her hand. The lid of the cauldron fell off, and 2 streams of golden liquid leaped out of the cauldron. Under Ling Yu's instructions, the golden liquid entered a jade bottle that she had placed at the side. Then, Ling Yu carefully handed the bottle to Xiao Chen. The exquisite 7-aperture fluid is done. Take it. Remember, 1 bottle can only neutralize 3 spirit-gathering pearls. Any more will not do. Xiao Chen caught the jade bottle in his hand. He was not in a rush to leave. He stared at the cauldron with a fiery gaze and asked, "This cauldron can be used for refining, right?" Ling Yu was slightly stunned. She had not expected Xiao Chen to know about this. She nodded and said, "Indeed, it can. However, what do you want to do? If you want to refine a magic treasure, you will need natural treasures. You will not be able to afford them." Xiao Chen did not say much. He took out the palm sword in his right hand and said, "Help me strengthen this secret treasure. I will pay for all the materials you need. If you have any requests, just let me know." Ling Yu received the flying sword that Xiao Chen handed over and looked at it carefully. Then, she nodded and said, "Secret treasures are slightly different from magic treasures. However, they are of the same origin. I can help you strengthen it. I will list out the materials, and you can think of a way to obtain them yourself. As for the conditions, there is no need for that. Just leave those cultivators seeking trouble for you to me. Only when you become stronger will I be able to stay by your side with peace of mind during these 9 months. When he was an inferior grade martial king, the palm sword had been Xiao Chen's trump card. When the palm sword was shot out from the palm, it could catch the opponent off guard and make it hard for them to dodge. Unfortunately, as Xiao Chen's cultivation increased, the palm sword became outdated. Its flying speed could no longer pose a threat to half-step martial monarchs. If Leng Yu could help strengthen it, that would be for the best. In the future, Xiao Chen could ask her for help on the blood flame shoes and black leather gloves. After receiving the list from Leng Yu, Xiao Chen took a quick look. The items listed were all rare ores such as black crystal, brilliant white steel, earth crystal, and magic blood crystal. They were all very expensive. Now, Xiao Chen only had about 700,000 or 800,000 medial-grade spirit stones to use. After he bought all the ores on the list, he would be left with about 200,000 medial-grade spirit stones. 200,000 medial-grade spirit stones is sufficient for me to cultivate to martial monarch. I should not think too much about it for now. I will think of a way to obtain more resources when I am a martial monarch. If I really cannot, I will just rely on the Haotian sect that Yu Chenxi is in. On the path of cultivation, the higher one's cultivation, the more resources one would need. This was especially so for genius cultivators. Without sufficient resources, they would not be able to bring out their potential. Thus, most genius cultivators had to rely on a strong sect. Only then could they afford to expend a horrifying amount of resources. With an idea in mind, Xiao Chen no longer hesitated. He went out and spent 400,000 medial-grade spirit stones to buy all the rare ores on the list. Then, he handed them to Leng Yu along with the palm sword. After doing all this, Xiao Chen returned to his room and prepared to absorb the spirit-gathering pearls. There was a bathtub about half the height of a person in the room. It was already filled with clean water. Black heavenly demon flowers floated on the water. Chapter 522. Xiao Chen took out a jade bottle and carefully poured out a third of the exquisite 7-aperture fluid. As the golden liquid dripped into the tub, the clear water in the tub immediately churned. Golden bubbles appeared continuously. The black petals of the heavenly demon flower floated on the surface, suppressing the spiritual energy in the water. None leaked out. By the time the exquisite 7-aperture fluid had completely melted into the water, the clear water had already turned golden. Xiao Chen took out a spirit-gathering pearl and let it float in his palm. Then, he used the purple thunder true fire to refine it. Qi! Qi! The purple thunder true fire burned ferociously. Soon, the spirit-gathering pearl slowly melted. After a while, it turned into a ball of spiritual liquid floating in Xiao Chen's palm. A vast amount of spiritual energy flowed out from the spiritual liquid, causing a cold wind to blow in the room. Xiao Chen poured the spiritual liquid into the bathtub and waited quietly. The golden water quickly warmed up and steam rose from the bathtub. However, the spiritual energy did not leak out at all. The petals of the heavenly demon flower were like a formless and tight net, trapping all the spiritual energy in the golden water. When the golden water boiled completely, Xiao Chen removed his clothes and leaped into the tub naked. Then, he sat down cross-legged. After one breath, the exquisite 7-aperture fluid entered Xiao Chen's pores. It circulated around Xiao Chen's body and opened all 300-odd acupoints. The spiritual liquid hidden in the golden water instantly found an entrance and surged towards Xiao Chen's acupoints. Opening 300-odd acupoints was equivalent to splitting the might of the spiritual liquid into 300-odd portions. This way, the pressure on Xiao Chen was significantly reduced. Xiao Chen's face immediately lit up with joy. It was indeed useful. The heavenly demon flower prevented the spiritual energy from leaking out, and the exquisite 7-aperture fluid opened his acupoints. At the same time, it dispersed the spiritual liquid from the spirit-gathering pearl. Given this, Xiaoqin could use the spirit-gathering pearl to cultivate without any danger. Boom! 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 The spiritual liquid flowed from the 300-odd acupoints in Xiaoqian's meridians at the same time. It was like 300-odd rivers in his meridians, surging with boundless spiritual energy. Good timing! Xiaoqin shouted in his heart, and the purple qi whirlpool quickly spun. More than 300 strands of surging heaven and earth spiritual qi immediately poured in and merged into the qi whirlpool before exploding. The energy of the spiritual light liquid wasn't used up all at once. Instead, it was used continuously, so the power of the explosion was completely within the range of Xiaoqian's tolerance. After the explosion ended, the sparkling and resplendent purple qi whirlpool doubled in size, reaching a size that could only be achieved after a month of bitter cultivation. This made Xiaoqin feel incomparably carefree. However, this was far from the end. The spiritual liquid contained in the golden water surged endlessly towards the more than 300 acupoints in Xiaoqian's body. The speed of the purple qi whirlpool actually increased at a visible rate. Xiaoqin was incomparably shocked, and he was so happy that he was speechless. The resplendent purple qi whirlpool was Xiaoqian's cultivation. The larger the qi whirlpool, the higher his cultivation. In the past, Xiaoqin would have to cultivate bitterly for at least half a month, using several thousand medial-grade spirit stones, before the qi whirlpool could grow slightly larger. However, today, it was slowly growing at every moment. How could such a fast speed not be incredible? Xiaoqin thought excitedly in his heart. It's all worth it. What 1 million medial-grade spirit stones? What severe injuries? What narrow escape? In exchange for 10 times his cultivation speed, it was all worth it. This process continued for the time it took to brew a pot of tea before the spiritual liquid in the golden water slowly decreased. The color of the water also slowly became very clear. The 300-odd acupoints in Xiaoqian's body quickly closed. The petals of the heavenly demon flower floating on the water were no exception, they all withered. Xiaoqian opened his eyes, and a bright light appeared in them. They were very bright in the darkness, like resplendent crystals. After a long time, they slowly faded away. Xiaoqian felt his entire body filled with boundless energy. He could feel the purple liquid in the qi whirlpool. This round of cultivation was equivalent to 3 months of cultivation. However, Xiaoqian still felt that he was still a medial-grade martial king. He still had not reached the bottleneck. My potential is really ridiculously scary. Unexpectedly, I have not reached the bottom yet. However, now that I have the spirit-gathering pearls, I do not have to rush. I should be able to advance to superior grade martial king in 6 days. With such a vast foundation, once Xiaoqian advanced to superior grade martial king, he felt terrified just thinking about it. Xiaoqian thought of the evil moon pavilions by Zhan. That terrifying opponent could execute his killing move in an instant. The more he thought about that person's strength, the more afraid he became. However, you are dreaming if you want to use my head to repay the pavilion master's kindness. When I advance to superior grade martial king and completely grasp the state of massacre, I do not mind giving you a pleasant surprise. Xiaoqian had a grave expression as he spoke with a cold and sinister gaze. The divine dragon worship occupied a vast and luxurious courtyard. There were fake mountains, flowing rivers, gardens, ponds, corridors, and jade pavilions. This was a courtyard that the Northern Sea's 4 young masters rented together. At this moment, the leader of the 4 young masters, the green-robed young master, was entertaining an honored guest in the Great Hall. It was the last disciple of the Evil Moon Pavilion, by Zhan. The Evil Moon Pavilion was one of the 10 great sects of the Great Jin Nation. It was undoubtedly one of the great sects of this starry sky. Even the green-robed young master's clan paled in comparison. Furthermore, Bai Zhan's strength was unfathomable. Hence, the green-robed young master did not dare to slight him. Brother Bai Zhan, it has been 2 years since we last met. I did not expect that your cultivation has already surpassed mine. Bai Zhan smiled faintly at the green-robed young master as he picked up a wine cup and took a sip. When the wine cup in Bai Zhan's hand was emptied, a few scantily clad maidservants at the side immediately came over and refilled Bai Zhan's wine cup. This maidservant had a slender black tail on her back. The other maidservants all had slender black tails as well. The 5 or 6 of these scantily clad maidservants were all beautiful and charming Eros demons. The green-robed young master waved his hand and smiled, "Brother Bai, don't laugh at me. At our cultivation realm, everyone knows that cultivation is not the only measure of combat prowess. I'm afraid that I am still not a match for Brother Bai." Bai Zhan smiled faintly and did not deny it. He said, "This time, I came looking for you to ask you to help me kill someone." The green-robed young master gently swirled the wine cup in his hand. When he saw the swirling wine in the cup, he smiled faintly and said, "Speak, what do you want me to do?" Bai Zhan slammed his wine cup heavily on the table and said softly, "An advanced Eros demon." Bang! The green-robed young master crushed the wine cup in his hand. The wine turned into a straight arrow that broke through the roof and soared into the sky. The 4 directions of the boundless sea all had their own deep-sea battlefields. The scions of these clans or great clans would undergo experiential training on these battlefields from a young age. They were no stranger to demons and did not fear them at all. They had strong wills and strong perseverance. There were even several strong cultivators who would go to the deep-sea battlefields to subdue Eros demons as their pets. This was because Eros demons were extremely beautiful. Their body structure was no different from that of a human woman. Eros demons were also more skillful in bed than human women. They enjoyed it much more comfortably than regular women. There were even some who practiced dual cultivation, relying on yin to replenish yang to strengthen their own cultivation. Eros demons innately knew how to replenish yin by using a male's yang essence to cultivate. To these cultivators, they were excellent cauldrons. With yin and yang complementing each other, the effects were even better. It was much stronger than a regular yang essence technique. This green-robed young master cultivated the joyous yin-yang incantation. It was an incomplete dual cultivation technique from the ancient era. 2 years ago, he found it while exploring a remnant in the boundless sea. After the green-robed young master made up for it, he started cultivating it. By relying on yin to replenish yang, his cultivation advanced rapidly. In a short 2 years, he caught up to the top genius of the boundless sea, Xianyuan Zhantian. The green-robed young master had gained boundless benefits from the Eros demons, tasting countless benefits. Hence, when he heard Bai Zhan mention an advanced Eros demon, his emotions surged and he could not control himself. The demons that came out of the spatial tiers would not appear unless there was a true demonic calamity. Even if there were, they would just come and take a look before leaving. The green-robed young master had once used the influence of the 4 noble clans in the shallow sea of the northern sea to search for an advanced Eros demon. After spending countless resources, there was no news at all. The green-robed young master looked at Bai Zhan with a fiery gaze and asked, "Brother Bai, are you serious?" "Indeed, I knew that you would take the bait." Bai Zhan smiled faintly and said softly, "What benefit do I get from lying to you?" Bai Zhan immediately told the green-robed young master about Xiao Chen's backer. Then, he mentioned that Xiao Chen had subdued an advanced Eros demon. The green-robed young master muttered to himself for a while. He was not in a rush to make a decision. Instead, he carefully considered the pros and cons. The 4 young masters all had strong clans behind them. They had received guidance from famous teachers since they were young. Aside from cultivation, they were very familiar with the conflicts of interest in the mundane world, as well as all sorts of crafty schemes. These people were very intelligent. For them to be able to achieve their current accomplishments, they were all very meticulous. How could the green-robed young master not tell them that Bai Zhan wanted to use him? However, this was a mutual use, each taking what they needed. The fact that the other party was able to tell Xiao Chen's backer in full detail showed his sincerity. If it was really as Bai Zhan said, then there was no need to fear too much. The Heavenly Extermination Union was indeed strong. However, this was the boundless sea. Their influence could not reach here. Furthermore, I will not use the strength of my clan. All I have to do is persuade the other 3 young masters. This will be a fight between the younger generation. The Heavenly Extermination Union will not be able to say anything. This way, I will settle the matter with the Heavenly Extermination Union. I will not bring any hidden dangers to my clan. People like them had to be careful with every move they made. Otherwise, if they lost their position as scions for the sake of an advanced Eros demon, the gains would not make up for the losses. Ha! In that case, many thanks to Brother Bai for the information. Tell me, what do you want me to do? After thinking about it, the green-robed young master felt that it was not a big problem. He chuckled and made his decision. Bai Zhan smiled faintly as though he had expected the other party to agree. He said softly, I will not make things difficult for you. If there is an opportunity, kill Xiao Chen and hand over his head to me. If not, just subdue his Eros demon. Chapter 523. In reality, Bai Zhan did not care about Xiao Chen at all. Even if Xiao Chen comprehended saber intent, had exquisite saber techniques, and grasped 2 states at the same time, he would not be able to defeat Xiao Chen. However, there was still a difference of 2 cultivation realms between Xiao Chen and Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's cultivation had risen from the ground up. Along the way, he had consumed countless spirit pills and natural treasures. His cultivation technique was also a peak Earth-ranked cultivation technique of the Evil Moon Pavilion. In terms of cultivation conditions, he was far superior to Xiao Chen. On top of that, his aptitude was not inferior to Xiao Chen's in the slightest. At his peak, he was confident that he would be able to defeat the other party within 10 moves, not even giving the other party a chance to escape. However, there was an advanced succubus by Xiao Chen's side, which added some variables to the battle. He wasn't 100% sure that he could keep Xiao Chen here, so he had to get rid of the succubus by Xiao Chen's side before he could make a move. That was how he was. He wouldn't make a move unless he was 100% confident. Once he made a move, he wouldn't give his opponent any chance. The green-robed young master laughed loudly and said, that would be for the best. If he is sensible, I can spare his life. If he is not, then don't blame me for being ruthless. This topic ended here. The green-robed young master asked Bai Zhan another question, Brother Bai, you are one of the strongest people in the Great Jin Nation. Tell me, with my current strength, can I rank high in the Great Jin Nation? In the next 5-nation youth competition, I should go and see if I can get into the top 10. In the past 5-nation youth competitions, the many outstanding talents of the Boundless Sea could not be bothered to participate. The rewards were not worth their attention. This was because there were similar competitions in the Boundless Sea. The rewards were no worse than the 5-nation youth competition. However, there were already rumors about this 5-nation youth competition. It was the budding era of geniuses. Heroes emerged in large numbers, the winds and clouds stirred. Geniuses from all walks of life gathered here, already drawing the attention of the last competition. Those who obtained the best rankings could enter the higher realms ahead of time. The mysterious upper realm held a fatal attraction for the many cultivators of the Boundless Sea. Naturally, the green-robed young master was no exception. Bai Zhan could tell from Xiao Chen's tone that he was quite pleased with himself, as if he was determined to get into the top 10. In his heart, he couldn't help but curse him for overestimating himself. Even he didn't have much confidence in getting into the top 10. He really didn't know where this person got his confidence from. As everyone knows, there are 10 great sects in Dajin, and the direct disciples of each sect are top-notch geniuses. However, not many people know about the 8 noble clans of the Great Jin Nation, which are even more powerful. These clans have existed since the Tianwu dynasty. Some of these clans can even be traced back to the earlier period of the Tianwu dynasty. Each of these clans produced an Emperor Wu. The 10 great direct disciples and the disciples of the 8 great clans, that's a total of 18 people. In every 5-nation youth competition, the top 18 will be decided from among these 18 people. With your strength, you should be able to fight for the last 2 spots in the top 20. However, you don't/T have much hope because there are still many hidden talents in Gene Nation. There have also been some top geniuses in the 4 nations recently. With your strength, you can only make it to the top 30. Bai Zhan also wanted to suppress this person's arrogance and prevent him from being too impudent. Thus, he told him the truth. When the green-robed young master heard Bai Zhan/'s words, he felt somewhat embarrassed. The top 10 were the peak, the top 20 were first-rate, and the top 30 were second-rate. The green-robed young master smiled embarrassedly and did not continue on this topic. Instead, he talked about other things. With the attentions of the Eros demons, the two drank and chatted happily. The sky slowly darkened. Brother Bai, stay here tonight. I will discuss this with my brothers first. Not allowing Bai Zhan to refuse, the green-robed young master forced Bai Zhan to stay. A sinister smile appeared on his handsome face as he said to the Eros demons wearing revealing clothes, "You all better properly entertain Brother Bai tonight. If Brother Bai is not satisfied, be careful of my punishment." The Eros demons that the green-robed young master had subdued bowed slightly, revealing a large portion of their bodies. They smiled faintly and said in a soft and charming voice, "Master, rest assured. We will not disappoint young Master Bai." Seeing the green-robed young master leave, Bai Zhan smiled coldly to himself. To think that he dares to practice an incomplete ancient cultivation technique without any qualms. This person is really bold. In the end, dual cultivation is an unorthodox cultivation technique. Furthermore, it is an incomplete cultivation technique. Sooner or later, this person will be blinded by his desires and sink into depravity. There were no shortcuts on the path of cultivation. Since ancient times, how many people who took shortcuts had a good ending? Bai Zhan put down his wine cup and looked at the beauties surrounding him. He frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "You want to absorb my yang essence and use it to replenish your yang essence to pry into the profound martial techniques of the evil moon pavilion? How can I not see through such a small trick? How foolish." Bai Zhan quickly tapped with his index finger, and a light flickered. In an instant, he tapped 6 times. A finger mark appeared on the foreheads of the 6 Eros demons, and they slowly fell asleep. For the past 4 days, Xiaoqin had been focused on refining the spirit-gathering pearls, strengthening his cultivation to deal with the evil moon pavilion's Bai Zhan. However, Xiaoqin did not know that the other party had already made a move against him. Furthermore, the other party was making use of Xiaoqian's strength, using schemes to deal with him. Everything was linked together, forcing Xiaoqin into a dead end step by step. After 4 days, Xiaoqin had already used 4 spirit-gathering pearls. His essence cultivation had increased explosively. The purple qi whirlpool in Xiaoqian's dantian had become crystalline and translucent, giving off a resplendent light. Indistinctly, a faint crystal appeared on the qi whirlpool. That was a sign that the qi was about to solidify. In the end, the purple qi whirlpool was just qi. If it could completely crystallize, anyone who wanted to injure Xiaoqian's heart veins or break his cultivation would have to put in a lot of effort. For spirit-gathering pearls. I can vaguely see the end of my cultivation as a medial-grade martial king. After absorbing 2 more spirit-gathering pearls, my potential as a medial-grade martial king should be completely tapped out. After Xiaoqin finished cultivating for the day, he came out of the bathtub and put on his clothes. No matter how great one's potential was, it would be tapped out one day. Xiaoqin had expected this day long ago. He did not show any dismay on his face. Instead, he was very excited. He had waited for this day for a long time already. After Xiaoqin put on his clothes, he was about to go out when he saw a painting on the table. So, he stopped. Xiaoqin had brought this painting out from the ancient desolate tower. Back when he broke out of the Scarlet Blood prison, he had obtained this painting. Everyone else's paintings had exploded. Only Xiao Chen's painting remained intact. The painting had changed from the original scarlet blood frost flame to the current one. A lotus-shaped scarlet blood frost flame floated above a huge palm. The entire painting was very strange. Xiao Chen had not been able to store it in his universe ring. Originally, he had forgotten about it. However, every time he entered the bathtub, he would have to remove his clothes. Only then did he discover this painting tied to his chest. I should go and ask Leng Yu. See if she knows what this is. It has been 4 days. She should have more or less finished refining my palm sword. After storing the painting, Xiao Chen pushed open the door and headed for Leng Yu's room. Dong! 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 The door is not closed. You may come in. Xiao Chen knocked on the door a few times and heard Leng Yu's melodious voice. When Xiao Chen entered the room, the cauldron, which was as tall as 2 people, entered his eyes. There was an inattributed flame on the crystal board under the cauldron. The raging golden light flame mirror above his head also shone with a beam of golden light. The purple mark on Leng Yu's forehead glistened brightly. She stared at the cauldron and did not look at Xiao Chen. It looks like this is not the right time. When Xiao Chen saw this, he knew that he should not disturb her. So, he stopped and prepared to leave. Don't go. It is almost done. Just wait a little longer, Leng Yu said softly as she stared at the cauldron. Xiao Chen stopped and casually sat on a chair at the side. Then, he watched with interest. Xiao Chen felt anticipation in his heart. He wanted to know how strong the palm sword would become after Leng Yu tempered it. The people of the immortal sect used cauldrons to refine magic treasures and medicinal pills. Xiao Chen was familiar with the compendium of cultivation and was very familiar with this. However, the secret treasures of the Tianwu continent were refined using cauldrons. Although secret treasures and magic treasures were similar, there were still differences. Xiao Chen did not know if using the method of refining magic treasures to strengthen secret treasures was difficult for Leng Yu. The expression on Leng Yu's face became increasingly grave. A purple light flickered on her fair fingers. She quickly formed hand seals and the purple light flickered continuously, illuminating the room. Boom! After Leng Yu finished forming the hand seals, the lid of the cauldron suddenly opened. A 3-inch short sword flew out from the cauldron. A purple flame burned on the sword. Leng Yu shouted and the short sword immediately lengthened, becoming a 1-meter-long sword. When the sword trembled, it gave off a melodious hum. The gentle purple flame turned into strands of purple sword light and shot out from the sword. They flashed in the air and the temperature in the room immediately soared. Go! Leng Yu pointed and the sword flew at Xiao Chen. It was very fast, like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before the tip of Xiao Chen's nose. He did not even have a chance to react. The instant the tip of the sword flew over, Xiao Chen clearly felt a dangerous aura in his heart. He nearly thought that he would be pierced through by this sword. When Xiao Chen felt the power of his bloodline in the sword, he smiled gently. He stretched out his hand and the sword hilt flew into his hand. With a thought, the sword quickly shrank to the size of a palm. Xiao Chen directed the palm sword to dance around the room. Everywhere the short sword passed, a fierce purple flame burned and there was a faint flicker of lightning. Not only was it faster, but its might was also much stronger than before. What was even rarer was that it now had its own attributes. It was no longer just a simple sharp blade. As Xiao Chen held the short sword in his hand, he had an extremely happy expression on his face. He said seriously, "It has been hard on you, Leng Yu." Leng Yu set up the cauldron and smiled gently, "It is not hard at all. Secret treasures are modified from magic treasures. They are mainly for cultivators without magic energy to use. They are a smaller version of magic treasures. I've used the materials you gave me to refine this palm sword. It's even tougher than your heaven-ranked soul weapons. Then, I attached a formation to it to increase the explosive power of the short sword. Finally, I infused all the lightning-attributed fire in the raging golden light flame mirror into it. This little secret treasure of yours has been reborn. Xiaoqin could not hide the smile on his face. He touched the smooth lightning patterns on the sword. The more he looked, the more he liked it. He said, "This can no longer be called the palm sword. You should give it a new name." Chapter 524. Ling Yu giggled and said, "I already thought about it for you. Even if you did not tell me, I would have told you." "What palm sword? That sounds awful. Let's call it the Thunder Fire Sword." Thunder Fire, good name. I will call it the Thunder Fire Sword." Xiaoqin fiddled with the Thunder Fire Sword for a while before reluctantly placing it back in his palm. After recovering his wits, Xiaoqin remembered the other purpose of this trip. He took out the painting and handed it to Ling Yu. "Take a look. Do you know what this is?" Ling Yu casually received the painting. At first, she did not care about it. However, after she unfurled the painting, her expression slowly turned grave. She said, "This is a void projection painting. Originally, it is blank. One can extract a scene from thin air and replicate it perfectly. This is a rare treasure even in the Kunlun realm. Where did you get it? Did you get it from the heavenly pagoda?" "No, it is the ancient desolate tower. There are 9 floors in the tower. Every floor gives you some benefits. I obtained it on the 3rd floor." Ling Yu closed the painting and said, "That is the heavenly pagoda without a doubt. Each of the 3,000 great realms has a heavenly pagoda. Each realm has a different name. Thinking about it, this is the only place where you can obtain this void projection painting." Xiaoqin received the painting again. He did not dare to be interested in the origins of the ancient desolate tower. He asked, "What is the use of this void projection painting now?" Ling Yu explained, "Naturally, it is very useful. If you complete the blood sacrifice, you will be able to use the scarlet blood frost flame in this painting. If your mental energy is stronger, you can even suck in cultivators and trap them to death. Isn't the painting in fake? How can it be useful?" Ling Yu explained patiently, "I already said that it is a perfect replication. What is real and what is fake? If I make a clone of someone with your memories, your personality, and your personality, they will be exactly the same as you. His height, weight, and appearance are exactly the same as yours. The martial techniques he practices are also the same as yours. That person is also called Xiaoqin. No one can see through him. Tell me, is he real or fake?" Xiaoqin pondered for a moment. Just thinking about it made his hair stand on end. Everything was the same. No one could tell the difference. Even if it was fake, it would become real. "Have you figured it out? This is how the scarlet blood frost flame is replicated. Of course, that person must have held back when absorbing the scarlet blood frost flame. It is impossible for him to replicate the might of the scarlet blood frost flame completely. Otherwise, he would have overdrawn his mental energy and died." Xiaoqin nodded and said, "I've thought it through. Do you have a way to help me refine it with a drop of blood?" Hearing Ling Yu say this, Xiaoqin immediately became excited. If he could really use this scarlet blood flame diagram, his strength would increase significantly. Ling Yu shook her head and said, "If you have magic energy, you can use your blood to refine it. However, it is very simple. You just need to drip your own blood on it. But without magic power, it will be difficult. This thing is a magic treasure, not for you warriors." Xiaoqin was extremely disappointed. He could only look at such a good treasure but could not use it. This was very depressing. Xiaoqin did have a secret technique for immortal cultivation. However, he could not build a foundation or form a core in this realm. How could he cultivate magic energy? The immortal secret technique, the purple thunder divine incantation, cultivated mental energy and not magic energy. However, if you still have resources, I can form the 10,000 magic gathering formation and forcefully help you condense some magic energy. At that time, you can use your blood to refine it. Xiaoqin muttered, how many medial-grade spirit stones do I need to buy those resources? Ling Yu already had a basic understanding of the prices of goods in this world. She calculated in her heart and said, however, 20 million medial-grade spirit stones should be enough. Xiaoqin gaped slightly. He had an astonished expression on his face. After that, there was no after that. Xiaoqin had obtained the 3 million medial-grade spirit stones after a series of bitter battles and coincidences. 20 million medial-grade spirit stones was too large a sum. Unless Xiaoqin was as lucky as Bai Lishi, he would not be able to obtain it. After he sold off all the demonic beast materials he had on him and added in the hundreds of thousands of medial-grade spirit stones that he had, he could barely gather 1 million medial-grade spirit stones. Wanting to gather 20 million medial-grade spirit stones felt like a pipe dream. However, Xiaoqin still asked Ling Yu for the materials needed for the 10,000 magic gathering formation. Although the chances were slim, it did not mean that there was no chance. Now that he had advanced to martial monarch, it was still possible for him to obtain 20 million medial-grade spirit stones. Xiaoqin removed the blood flame shoes and the black leather gloves on his hands. Then, he handed them to Ling Yu and said, help me strengthen these two secret treasures. Tell me what materials you need. Ling Yu received the blood flame shoes and the black leather gloves and said, you should only have about 100,000 medial-grade spirit stones left, right? To refine these two secret treasures, you will need at least 1 million medial-grade spirit stones. I have my ways. Just write down the list. Xiaoqin received the list of materials from Ling Yu and glanced at it. Then, he decisively went out. Xiaoqin went to the market and sold off the demonic beast materials in his universe ring, the miscellaneous items he obtained from the other cultivators, and some secret treasures that he had no use for. Xiaoqin finally obtained 1,100,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Then, he bought a long list of natural treasures and all sorts of rare ores. Xiaoqin had spent all 1,100,000 medial-grade spirit stones in an instant. He was now truly a pauper. I have brought the items. I will come back to collect them 3 days later. Sorry for the trouble. Xiaoqin handed the list of materials to Ling Yu. He appeared very determined. With the thunder flame sword as an example, Xiaoqin believed that the blood flame shoes and the black leather gloves would give him a pleasant surprise. Even if he became a pauper, he would not care. Xiaoqin's strength would increase visibly. Only by doing this could he gain the strength to fight with Bai Zhan in a short time. Back in the bedroom, Xiaoqin took out the jade bottle containing the exquisite 7-aperture fluid. Then, he slowly poured the golden liquid into the bathtub. Chi! Cracking sounds came from the bathtub. Soon, the clear water turned golden. Xiaoqin observed for a while, waiting for the exquisite 7-aperture fluid to completely melt. After the exquisite 7-aperture fluid completely melted, Xiaoqin took out a spirit-gathering pearl and refined it into a spiritual liquid. Then, he quickly poured it into the golden water in the bathtub. Xiaoqin closed his eyes and waited for a while. He knew that it was time. He stopped looking at the scene in the bathtub and started to take off his clothes. Now that he had experienced this several times, he did not need to be as careful as he was the first time. Xiaoqin leaped into the bathtub and sat down cross-legged. Soon, with the help of the exquisite 7-aperture fluid, all 320 acupoints in his body opened. The spiritual liquid that the spirit-gathering pearls turned into poured into Xiaoqin in an endless stream. He closed his eyes and familiarly refined this vast spiritual energy into his own cultivation. The purple chi whirlpool gave off a resplendent light. It spun wildly like a tornado, greedily absorbing this vast spiritual energy. The chi whirlpool slowly grew larger. Xiaoqin had only absorbed half of the spiritual liquid when the chi whirlpool stopped growing. Xiao Qin rejoiced. He knew that his bottleneck was approaching. If a regular person felt a bottleneck, they would be very upset. This was because once they reached a bottleneck, they would be stuck for at least a year and a half. It would be hard for them to advance their cultivation. If their mentality was not good and they did not have any natural treasures, they would be stuck at this bottleneck for 4 to 5 years, or even more than 10 years. However, Xiao Qin was not vexed at all. He had the spirit-gathering pearls. He had a foundation that ordinary people could not compare to. What was even rarer was that he had failed once. He knew that even if he failed when using the spirit-gathering pearls, he would only be severely injured. This was because he had 24 acupoints that he could open and close freely. As for the other geniuses, they did not have 20 acupoints. If they failed, they would die. Even if they had a spirit-gathering pearl, they would not dare to risk using it. The next day, Xiao Qin absorbed another spirit-gathering pearl. He had completely used up the exquisite 7-aperture fluid. This time, the purple qi whirlpool did not increase in size. However, the number of crystals outside the qi whirlpool increased slightly. Xiao Qin tried to cultivate again. Like before, his cultivation did not increase at all. The bottleneck between medial grade Martial King and superior grade Martial King had truly arrived. If I cultivated normally, I would need at least half a year to reach the bottleneck of medial grade Martial King. The 6 spirit-gathering pearls saved me half a year of time. The gap has shrunk again. Xiao Qin clenched his fist tightly as he spoke with a resolute expression. On this day, Xiao Qin did not do anything. He just lay on his bed and slept. The next day, he did not do anything either. He rested his mind and spirit, preparing to break through the bottleneck of superior grade Martial King in one breath. On the third night, Xiao Qin finally made a move. He got up from his bed. After sleeping for 2 days and 2 nights, his mind, qi, and spirit were completely replenished. Sitting on the prayer mat on the floor, Xiao Qin took out the 6 inferior grade spirit-gathering pearls from the universe ring and placed them on his head. Then, he used the purple fire to slowly refine them. Regular people only needed 3 spirit-gathering pearls to break through. However, Xiao Qin's foundation was much stronger than others. Naturally, it would be much harder for him to break through. He even worried that 6 spirit-gathering pearls would not be enough. After 7 or 8 minutes, the 6 spirit-gathering pearls had all turned into spiritual liquid. The leaking spiritual energy instantly spread throughout the room. A pure white mist shone on Xiao Qin, making him look very hazy. The white mist condensed on the ceiling beams, the vase, the table, and the bed. Immediately, drops of dew formed. This was dew formed from pure spiritual liquid. It was incredibly precious. However, at this moment, it filled Xiao Qin's room. At first, Xiao Qin took a deep breath and relaxed. Then, he controlled a clump of spiritual liquid and placed it on his Tianmen acupoint. The moment the spiritual liquid fell, it flowed along the main meridian. It was like a huge river carrying the force of tens of thousands of horses galloping. That force, that aura, it was like a magnificent army. It kicked up a cloud of sand as it surged over. No one could block the knight's sword. With his previous experience, Xiao Qin did not panic. He quietly waited for the moment he crashed into the barrier. Boom! In merely a moment, the spiritual liquid crashed into the purple qi whirlpool, creating an intense explosion. The unmoving bottleneck loosened slightly. However, it was only a slight loosening. The qi and blood in Xiao Qin's body surged as he endured the pressure. Xiao Qin roared in his heart, still not enough. Again. Boom. Another stream of spiritual liquid fell down and exploded with a bang. Not enough, again. Chapter 525. Xiao Qin had a grave expression. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips as he controlled the spiritual liquid to pour it down. He did not hesitate at all. Xiao Chen's expression did not change, he showed no fear. He was resolute and decisive. There was only one thought in his mind, to break through the bottleneck that ordinary people had been stuck for 10 or 20 years in one go. This was because Xiao Chen was not an ordinary person. He was not. He was not. He was a one-in-a-million genius. He was the white-robed bladesman who had never been defeated. He was the peak genius of this budding age of geniuses who could contend with the heavens. In this age of geniuses, geniuses from all walks of life were like the stars in the sky. There were countless heroes from all walks of life, like carps crossing the river. Cultivators were hot-blooded and had lofty aspirations. In this age of geniuses, they could endure the loneliness and the temptation. They dared to fight with the heavens, with the earth, with men. How could they show any fear? Boundless hot-bloodedness and lofty aspirations. They only asked the heavens one question: will I, Xiao Chen, reach the peak? If the heavens do not answer, then I will break the heavens. Will I, Xiao Chen, reach the peak? Boom! 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 Explosions rang out continuously in the Qi whirlpool. The shock waves caused his internal organs to sustain severe injuries. However, Xiao Chen did not relax or have any intention of giving up. When the last clump of spiritual liquid fell into the Qi whirlpool, the entire Qi whirlpool exploded into primal chaos. Pure spiritual energy surged out and spread throughout Xiao Chen's body. He immediately felt refreshed. The injuries in his chest were all healed in an instant. Xiao Chen waited until the chaos slowly regained its clarity. He sank his consciousness into the purple Qi whirlpool. At this moment, half of it was gaseous, while the other half was a crystalline purple crystal. Superior grade Martial King. I succeeded. Xiao Chen opened his eyes joyfully, and they gleamed. His eyes were as clear as crystal, they were incomparably bright in the white fog. Xiao Chen opened his mouth and sucked in all the white fog and spiritual dew in the room. The martial Tao is difficult. My path is even more difficult than that of ordinary people. However, I managed to break through to superior grade Martial King. Xiao Chen said softly with a faint smile on his face as he sensed the pure and explosive Yuan Qi within the purple crystal cyclone. Pushing open the door, Xiao Chen headed straight for Leng Yu's room. There were 2 refined mid-grade secret treasures waiting for him there. Leng Yu took out the black leather gloves from the cauldron. When she saw Xiao Chen enter, she immediately smiled and said, "Congratulations, you succeeded. You did not die from the explosion of the spirit-gathering pearls." Xiao Chen was in a good mood, so he did not mind Leng Yu's teasing. He took the black leather gloves and blood flame shoes from Leng Yu and put them on. Xiao. Before Leng Yu could introduce the wondrous uses of the 2 new secret treasures, the 2 of them felt a chill descend from the sky at the same time. This chill passed through the windows and entered their bodies, making them feel very cold. Something's happened. Xiao Chen was shocked. The big event that he had predicted might really happen. The 2 of them quickly went out and looked up. They saw the distant horizon. A scarlet full moon had appeared at some point in time. It slowly rose and broke through the pitch-black demonic clouds, sending down a boundless light. Roar! 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 Loud roars came from the deep-sea battlefield, sounding like they could topple mountains and flip the seas. The sound waves were vast and mighty. Even from far away, they could feel the air trembling. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He looked at the rising scarlet moon in the sky and muttered, "Scarlet moon, this is a real scarlet moon. What's going on?" Leng Yu's expression did not change. She said calmly, "This is the demonic spirit scarlet moon. Once a demon appears, its strength will increase significantly. The blood in its body will surge, becoming ferocious and berserk. It is very difficult to deal with." Xiao Chen felt it was strange. He asked, "Then why are you not reacting at all?" Leng Yu smiled and said, "What reaction can I have? However, when this light shone on me, my strength increased by at least 20%. What causes the demonic spirit Scarlet Moon to appear? Do you know what it means? Xiaochen asked Leng Yu. She was an advanced demon. She should know some of the secrets behind this. When the outstanding talents of the Boundless Sea returned to rest at the same time, Xiaochen had already felt that something was wrong. Indeed, in less than half a month, this mysterious scarlet moon rose into the sky. Leng Yu shook her head and said, "The demonic spirit Scarlet Moon exists in the starry heaven's end. During the demonic calamity, demons will use the blood of 10,000 virgins to summon the demonic spirit Scarlet Moon to strengthen the demons. If no one summons it, it will appear once every 3,000 years. After that, it will appear every month for about half a year. As for what it means, you will know very soon." At this moment, all the cultivators on the divine dragon warship felt that icy chill. They all rushed out of their rooms and were astonished when they saw the scarlet moon in the distance. Many figures leaped from roof to roof, rushing towards the deep-sea battlefield. Everyone felt that something was wrong. Xiaochen followed the crowd and rushed forward as well. He wanted to see what was happening. The edge of the giant ship, which was also the direction of the bow, was already filled with people. As they got closer, they could hear the roars of the demon dwellers even more clearly. Xiaochen floated in the air and looked ahead. He could not help but frown. 3 huge pillars of light soared into the sky from the 3 outpost islets in front. Talisman scripts appeared around the pillars of light, linking the formations on the 3 outpost islets together and forming a barrier flickering with blue light. Behind the barrier, there were countless demonic humans gathered. All 18 types of demonic humans had gathered together, and the number of each type of demonic humans was extremely large. The iron demons with the strongest defense were at the very front. They acted as meat shields among the demons. 4,000 iron demons lined up like a human wall. They blocked all the ancient demonic energy cannons from the 3 outpost islets with their bodies. Behind the iron demons was an unending chain of flaming clouds. The red flaming clouds were more than 5,000 meters long. Many fire demons stood on top of them, sending all sorts of strong attacks at the barrier. Behind them were ice devils, winged devils, ghost race, blood devils. All 18 kinds of devils were present. They gathered together and let out heaven-shaking roars. They were like an army as they ferociously attacked the blue barrier. Under the unceasing attacks, the blue barrier that supported the sky began to ripple like water mist. If this continued, the barrier would be broken sooner or later. Once the divine dragon warship was destroyed, the 3 outpost islets would fall, which would directly threaten the divine dragon warship. Once the divine dragon warship was destroyed, the 3rd-grade battlefield would go out of control. The millions of humans on the islands behind would have to migrate. The losses would be immeasurable. How can it be like this? The demons in the periphery and the inner area have all gathered together. All of them are at least 20% stronger than usual. This won't do. If this continues, the outpost islets will fall sooner or later. We will also lose the divine dragon warship. We will all lose our lives. Where are the divine dragon palace's people? Why do I not see them? Where did they go? Are you stupid? The elites of the divine dragon palace are all in the core islands, guarding the high-rank demons. Otherwise, how would we have the opportunity to hunt demons in the periphery and inner area? Any high-ranked demon would be able to kill us. Xiaochen was not the only one who thought of the consequences of losing the outpost islets. The many cultivators on the divine dragon warship thought of it as well. Xiaochen, you are right. If we were still in the inner area, we would not be able to stand here. When Bai Lishi saw Xiaochen in the air, he immediately flew over. He said with a cautious expression, "What should we do? Should we retreat in advance?" I think several people are thinking the same thing. They are already making preparations. Xiaochen looked around and discovered that this was indeed the case. The people at the front of the warship had already disappeared. These people had all flown into the air, their eyes flickering as they retreated far away. Such a phenomenon was no exception. There was life and death in the experiential training. However, there was still a chance of survival. If the outpost islets fell, the demons would attack. Under the illumination of the blood moon, there would be no hope of survival against the demons, whose strength had increased explosively. Furthermore, there was a large number of them. Furthermore, the survival of the divine dragon palace did not have much to do with these people. It was not their own sect, so there was no need to throw their lives away. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. He smiled faintly and said, "There is no rush. Although the inner sect experts of the Divine Dragon Palace are on the core islets, don't forget about the Southern Sea's 4 heroes, the Northern Sea's 4 young masters, the Western Sea's 7 knights, and the Eastern Sea's little dragon king. They are all half-step martial monarchs and above. 10-odd half-step martial monarchs are a significant force. I believe that the Divine Dragon Palace summoned them back for this." Bai Lishi analyzed the situation and felt that Xiao Chen's words made sense. He chuckled and said, "I was the one who panicked. If that is the case, this is a fortuitous encounter for us. To the weak, it would be pretty good if they could preserve their lives in such a dangerous situation. However, to the strong, as long as there was a chance to fight, the endless number of demons would be a large number of points, an endless source of wealth." Confidence appeared in Xiao Chen's heart. A faint light appeared in his eyes. He had a resolute expression and said calmly, "That's right. With so many demons, it would take a lot of effort to find them. Now that they are all gathered together, we can save a lot of effort. If this is not a fortuitous encounter, what is?" During the instant Xiao Chen spoke, a strong aura spread out from his body. Bai Lishi, who was beside him, immediately felt pressure. This was because Bai Lishi had just advanced to superior grade martial king. His essence was vast and pure, but he had not tempered it carefully. Hence, he could not control the spiritual energy as he wished. After a period of time, after tempering his essence, such a situation would not occur. Bai Lishi said in shock, "Xiao Chen, you advanced to superior grade martial king?" Xiao Chen had a deep gaze and a resolute expression. He nodded and said, "Yes, I just advanced. I already made a great vow on this battlefield. I will not leave until I advance to half-step martial monarch." Dong! 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 As the two spoke, the rumbling of horses' hooves came from behind. The neighing of horses mixed with the sound of hooves, sounding like thunder. When the sound reached everyone's ears, their minds buzzed. Their qi and blood surged involuntarily, and they had to circulate their energies to cover their ears. Chapter 526. What a strong horse! Unexpectedly, it can achieve such might with just its voice. Xiao Chen turned his head and saw a scarlet warhorse galloping over from the distance. The warhorse had a golden horn on its head and a ferocious, glowing red light in its eyes. The fur on its body glowed scarlet. As it galloped, its fur bounced up and down. There was a faint flicker of light. Along the way, there were countless blurry scarlet horse figures, making it impossible to determine the horse's true position. A person wearing purple battle armor and a purple dragon cloak stood on the warhorse. He held a 2-meter-long halberd in his hand. This person carried an overwhelming fighting spirit as he rushed to the bow of the warship. His sharpness was unstoppable. There seemed to be a formless tyrannical aura coming from his Tianmen acupoint, splitting the black demonic clouds above him in half. It's the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian. That is his mount, a rank 8 mixed-blood demonic beast, the royal dragon horse. Startled cries came from the crowd. When they saw Xianyuan Zhantian arrive in an instant, they all made way for him, opening a path for him to jump off the warship without any obstruction. Bang! 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 The royal dragon horse stepped on the scarlet sea like it was on flat ground. Its 4 hooves kicked up a huge splash. There were no longer any obstructions when it leaped into the Scarlet Sea. The royal dragon horse moved at full speed, like a tornado. It instantly reached Mach 4 and arrived at the outpost islets in the blink of an eye. However, the royal dragon horse did not slow down at all. It continued to charge forward ferociously. Finally, the royal dragon horse roared ferociously and carried Xianyuan Zhantian through the blue barrier, landing among the iron demons. Bai Lishi muttered, "What an incredible fellow. He is going to start with the iron demons." Bang! After Xianyuan Zhantian leaped over the blue barrier, he held up the heavenly war halberd and thrust it forward. The halberd turned into an azure flood dragon and pierced into the iron demon's body. The iron demon's body was tougher than thousand-year-old frost iron. Yet, Xianyuan Zhantian easily pierced it. One could easily imagine how sharp this halberd was. A dazzling light exploded from the tip of the halberd. The iron demon's transformation suddenly exploded, turning into countless metal shards that fell like rain. At the moment of the explosion, 990 small cyan flood dragon auras flew out along with the iron scraps, dancing in the air. The royal dragon horse gently leaped up and carried Xianyuan Zhantian away from the 4,000-odd iron demons' encirclement. When its four hooves landed on the water, they kicked up scarlet waves. Bang, bang, bang. Xianyuan Zhantian had not gone far when he suddenly turned around. His heavenly war halberd flashed 9 times and the 990 small azure flood dragons immediately returned to the halberd. Continuous explosions rang out and 6 iron demons were instantly blasted into pieces. Surging shockwaves spread out, causing the iron demons in the rear to be thrown off their feet. Xianyuan Zhantian laughed loudly and rode the royal dragon horse, a soul-blood demonic beast, back. The royal dragon horse's speed was as fast as lightning. The fur on its body flickered with a dazzling bloody light. It left blood-colored afterimages in the midst of the iron demons, making it hard for others to capture its figure. Waves surged on the Scarlet Sea. Azure light flickered, and flood dragons roared ferociously. Countless iron demons were blasted into pieces, dying without a complete corpse. 1 man, 1 horse, and 1 halberd, Xianyuan Zhantian charged in and out of the iron demons, sweeping through everything in his path. However, the iron demons could not even touch the corner of his clothes. Xianyuan Zhantian completely disrupted the iron demons' formation. The 1,000 ancient demonic energy cannons on the outpost islets finally revealed their ferocious side. Thousands of beams of light soared into the sky. Without the iron demons to block them, everywhere the beams of light passed, the demons were blasted into pieces. A rain of blood fell from the sky. Under the illumination of the scarlet moonlight, the rain of blood fell. Together with the thousands of demons, the scene was extremely majestic. These are ancient demonic energy cannons fired using superior-grade spirit stones. 1 shot would exhaust 100 superior-grade spirit stones. I estimate that they can fire 5 rounds at most. Len Yu, who was at the side, pointed out the crux of the matter and calmly analyzed it. Xiaoqin sighed softly, 5 rounds is enough. This Xianyuan Zhantian is really incredible. He managed to break through the iron demon's formation by himself. That is equivalent to turning the situation around by himself. Earlier, because of the iron demons blocking the ancient demonic energy cannons, the ancient demonic energy cannons on the outpost islets became mere decorations. The iron demons did not feel pain and had strong defenses. If the ancient demonic energy cannons struck them, they would just be wasting spirit stones. The gains did not make up for the losses. Len Yu smiled and said, "What is so amazing about him? It is all thanks to that horse. Without that horse, no matter how powerful he is, if the iron demons surrounded him, he would still die." Xiaoqin said calmly and objectively, "The horse is amazing, but the man is even more amazing. When the man and horse work together, they are even more incredible. The title of Eastern Sea's Little Dragon King is indeed well-deserved. That royal dragon horse was indeed incredible." Xiao Chen had heard from the others that it was a warhorse mixed between a spirit beast and a demonic beast, a mutated species. Its speed was astonishing. Even with Xiao Chen's eyesight, he could only catch a blurry figure. He could not determine its exact position. If Xiao Chen could not even catch the Iron Demon's position in a fight, there would be no point in fighting. However, Xianyuan Zhantian's offensive power was even more amazing. Xiao Chen had a deep understanding of the Iron Demon's defenses and life force. There was no way he could kill them in one strike. With Xianyuan Zhantian's horrifying offensive power, he was worthy of the title of a peak genius. When man and horse worked together, he could sweep through all the geniuses of the younger generation. Bai Lishi laughed loudly and said, "What's wrong? You just advanced to superior grade Martial King, and you already suffered such a setback. Brat, don't tell me you have lost your confidence." Xiao Chen shook his head and smiled. "Ha ha. It is encouragement, not a loss of confidence. Let's go, it is time for us to make an appearance." While Xiao Chen spoke, the ancient demonic energy cannons had already fired 5 rounds. The southern sea's 4 heroes, the northern sea's 4 young masters, and the western sea's 7 knights all charged in. When the cultivators on the warship saw their opportunity, they all leaped out excitedly, charging towards the battlefield. When the warship approached the blue barrier, Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi split up. They each found a breakthrough point and charged over, searching for their own fortuitous encounters. This time, Xiao Chen chose to fight the fire demons that previously reduced him to a sorry state. Now that their strength had increased significantly, if he still could not defeat these fellows, then he would have wasted the past half-month of cultivation. Who? The moment Xiao Chen landed, 10 odd fire demons noticed him. Fireballs covered the sky and fell like rain. When Xiao Chen saw the fireballs falling, he quickly drew the lunar shadow saber. Essence gathered on the saber, forming a resplendent saber light. However, he did not rush to send it out. Bang! 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 Xiao Chen chopped every fireball flying at him in half. Xiao Chen felt that his attack speed was 20% faster than before. When facing the dense fireballs, Xiao Chen did not feel any pressure at all. He dealt with them very easily. With a thought, the saber light chopped the fireballs in half. The goal of your black leather gloves is to increase your attack speed. I have refined 99 spiritual wind formations for you. They are sufficient to increase your attack speed by 40%. Even after you become a martial monarch, they will still be able to increase your attack speed by 20%. Ling Yu explained to Xiao Chen from within the spirit blood jade. So that's how it is. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. This way, it will be easier to deal with the fire demons. Xiao Chen did not move at all. He stood on the water and condensed a saber light on his saber, waiting for an opportunity. After a while, the relentless attacks of the fire demons finally paused. Xiao Chen seized this opportunity and did not hesitate to make his move. Glittering Wukue. The light condensed on the saber instantly turned into a dense saber chi. Then, it flew at a fire demon in the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sharp saber light seemed like it was going to cut the air in half, giving off a buzzing sound as it tore through the air. Flickering purple crystals flowed in the saber chi, making the saber chi look solid. It was much stronger than before. It was so fast that it disappeared. The fire demon that Xiao Chen locked onto did its best to dodge. However, one of its arms was still chopped off. I did not use saber intent or state for this strand of saber chi, and it already has such might. If I used both, its might would be 50% stronger. A scarlet light flickered in Xiao Chen's eyes as he used the state of massacre. He stopped probing and started the real massacre. Xiao Chen's figure flashed, leaving afterimages in the air. He dodged all the explosive attacks of the fire demons. I used black crystals, magic blood crystals, brilliant white steel, 1,000 mountains frost iron, and 90 other rare ores to refine your blood flame shoes. More importantly, I completely infused the secret techniques on them. Now, your movement speed can maintain at Mach 4 at all times. Xiaoqin entered deep thought. No wonder my speed is so ridiculously fast. It turns out that this is the reason. The advantage that the fire demons had over Xiaoqin was completely lost. Their explosive attacks could not hit him, and their dodging speed could not match his attack speed. They could only passively take a beating. After 7 or 8 minutes, 15 fire demons died under Xiaoqian's saber. They did not even have a chance to flee. It was a one-sided massacre. The fire demons do not have strong defenses. Their speed and attack speed cannot compare to mine, so I slaughtered them. This is reasonable. If I want to test out the true might of my saber chi, I have to find an iron demon. Furthermore, I have to find a high-ranked iron demon. After collecting the demon cores of the 15 fire demons, Xiaoqin did not become complacent. He continued to analyze the situation calmly. Xiaoqin swept his gaze across the chaotic battlefield and saw a group of cultivators surrounded by demons. Then, he fixed his gaze on them. There were all kinds of demons in that group. There were fire demons, ice demons, blood demons, and winged demons. However, the core was a high-ranked iron demon. Using the high-ranked iron demon as a shield, several dozen demons surrounded a team of 10. The human cultivators could not retaliate at all, they could only defend passively. If this continued, they would be destroyed sooner or later. Dang! 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 The weapons of the 3 cultivators at the front of the 10-man team shone brightly. All sorts of saber techniques hacked at the high-ranked iron demon, creating sparks. That high-ranked iron demon laughed loudly. Sparks flew everywhere, but it did not suffer any damage. Then, he charged forward in all directions, causing the troops to scatter without any order. The various demons circling above their heads rained down attacks on them, forcing the 10 to flee in all directions. Big brother, what should we do? We cannot break its defense at all. We should not have come to join in on the excitement. Originally, I thought that Xianyuan Zhantian lured away all the iron demons. Unexpectedly, we ran into a high-ranked iron demon here. Chapter 527. The leader of the group, a middle-aged cultivator, punched the iron demon back by more than 500 meters. When he saw the iron demon standing up as if nothing had happened, he said with an unsightly expression. Demons danced wildly, winds blew, and clouds churned. This was a feast for the strong but a grave for the weak. At this moment, the group of 10 was surrounded by the demons. They could not advance or retreat. The laughter of the demons filled their ears. I like that girl. Ha ha. Her skin is soft and tender. She will definitely be delicious to eat. Don't hurt her. I like that older fellow. He is chewy and has a high cultivation. After eating him, his strength will definitely soar. I want that fatso. He has a lot of oil. You have never eaten him before. You will never know how delicious he is. GGA. At this moment, the demons appeared to be very relaxed. They were like cats playing with mice, toying with the group of 10. When the 10 cultivators heard the words of the demons, their expressions turned increasingly unsightly. When they thought about how they were about to fall into the demon's stomach, they felt despair. Bang! Just at this moment, a saber chi infused with purple crystals and a saber intent with an inextinguishable sharpness streaked across the sky. The weapons of the bladesmen in the group of 10 buzzed when they felt the saber intense sharpness. They looked like they would struggle free at any moment. In an instant, 3 blood demons and a winged demon were sliced in half by this saber chi. Streams of black blood fell to the ground. Saber intent. Materialized saber chi. An expert is coming. Everyone's spirits jolted as they looked in the direction of the saber chi. They saw a white figure on the scarlet sea, flashing over quickly. The figure moved very fast, leaving behind white afterimages on the water. In a few blinks of an eye, he arrived before the group. A high-ranked blood demon circled in the air. A red light flashed in its eyes, and a greedy expression flashed in its eyes. What a strong chi and blood! If I consume it, I might be able to evolve again. Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations, Clear Wind Chop. Seeing the demons swooping down from the sky, Xiao Chen's figure flashed and turned into 9 afterimages. 9 cool breezes blew across the calm sea. The cool breeze concealed Xiao Chen's overwhelming killing intent. Even the weapon in his hand disappeared in an instant. Cool breeze, only seeing the cool breeze and not the saber. Bang! The 9 figures merged together. Before the 9 demons behind Xiao Chen could react, a bloody mark appeared on their foreheads. A purple light appeared, and the bloody mark split the demons in half. Kill him! The other demon dwellers were both shocked and enraged. They surrounded Xiao Chen and locked him down with killing intent. When the other cultivators on the water saw this, they immediately paled. No matter how strong you were, once you were surrounded by a large number of demons, only death awaited you. It's over. This youth is too careless. If he had worked together with us, we would have been able to kill our way out, the middle-aged cultivator leading the group of 10 said with a pale complexion after seeing his life extinguished in an instant. However, reality startled everyone. The white-robed bladesman, who was entangled in the air by the demons, did not show any signs of panic despite all the powerful attacks coming at him. The white-robed bladesman brandished his saber and his white robes fluttered. Not only did he receive all the attacks, but he even launched a sharp counterattack, dazzling everyone. Flight on wings, disordered dance of 1,000 years. Suddenly, Xiao Chen shouted and executed a move that he had not used for a long time, disordered dance of 1,000 years. In that instant, Xiao Chen's figure flickered in the air like a phantom. Strands of purple crystalline saber chi danced around chaotically. Bang! By the time Xiao Chen withdrew his saber and landed back on the Scarlet Sea, half of the demons surrounding him had died. The purple crystalline saber chi had chopped the demons into several pieces. Not even their bones remained as they died in the Scarlet Sea. This person is a genius cultivator. The crowd exclaimed in shock. Unexpectedly, aside from the outstanding talents of the Boundless Sea and the Evil Moon Pavilions by Jean, there was another genius cultivator. Xiao Chen glanced at the stunned crowd. He frowned slightly and said, "Still not leaving?" When the group heard Xiao Chen's words, they were slightly stunned. When they understood that Xiao Chen was helping them, they quickly nodded and said, let's go. We will leave immediately. Many thanks, young hero. You want to leave? How can it be that easy? Iron Demon, scatter them. None of them can escape. The old blood demon leading the group ordered coldly with a sullen expression as he looked at the group below. Xiao. The Iron Demon pushed off the water with his feet. He did not use any technique as he shouted and dashed on the water. He was like a surging train charging at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's expression turned cold as he said in a frosty voice, "Scram." Xiao Chen kicked out and merged his essence and vital chi. A surging force burst out and the Iron Demon flying over was knocked back like a cannonball. It tumbled for a kilometer before it stopped. The 10-man team quickly took advantage of this opportunity to flee in the direction of the 3 outpost islets. They no longer dared to interfere in this situation. Let's deal with this group of demons first. Later, I will go and find that high-ranked Iron Demon as an experiential training. Xiao Chen looked coldly and emotionlessly at the remaining 50 demons in the sky. A red light flickered in his eyes, but his heart remained calm. This was the effect of the state of massacre. By maintaining calm and slowly increasing the might of the state of massacre, one day, one would be able to grasp the state of massacre and not fall into depravity. Kill. Xiao Qin shouted, and the murderous intent that he had been suppressing in his eyes surged out. The horrifying murderous intent seemed to solidify the air. The demons in the air paused for a moment. They were astonished in their hearts. This human cultivator's killing intent was more than twice as strong as theirs. Taking advantage of the moment the demons were stunned, Xiao Qin flew up. His crystalline saber chi contained saber intent. In the blink of an eye, he chopped 3 demons in half. Boom! 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 As the demons died one after another, an invisible red light surged towards Xiao Qian's forehead. This caused Xiao Qian's state of massacre to become even more condensed. The killing intent was like a viscous substance spreading in the air, causing the remaining demons to slow down significantly. It felt like with every step they took, a boundless killing intent poured into their minds, putting great pressure on their minds. As the might of the state of massacre increased, the lives of the demons died under Xiao Qian's saber. The desire to massacre permeated the demons unknowingly. Kill, kill, kill them all. The more you kill, the stronger you become. You should feel the charm of massacre now. Look at these demons. Before the state of massacre, they could not even last 10 moves. Similar thoughts raged in Xiao Qian's mind like a storm, bursting out continuously, trying to make him lose himself in the state of massacre. The desire to massacre descended once again, trying to pull Xiao Qin into an abyss of massacre that he would never be able to escape from. Leng Yu, who was in the spirit blood jade, sighed silently. She had already made her preparations to leave at any moment. In her opinion, the path that Xiao Qin wanted to take was too difficult. There was almost no chance of success, it was a path of no return. The Scarlet Throne was an ancient secret treasure. It was incredibly mysterious. As the number of massacres increased, its strength would soar continuously. There was almost no limit to its growth. As a martial king, Xiao Qin wanted to subdue that power. This was too ambitious. However, this time, Leng Yu was somewhat surprised. After the deaths of the 50-odd demons, Xiao Qin did not fall into a state where he could not extricate himself. The red light in Xiao Qian's eyes faded away, replaced by clarity. He allowed the killing intent from the demons' corpses to turn into a red light and enter his forehead. Then, he calmly headed for the iron demon in the distance. Dang! A purple saber light gathered on the saber as Xiao Qin chopped at the fleeing iron demon. The saber blade created a series of sparks on the high-ranked iron demon's body. However, it did not cause any substantial damage. The high-ranked iron demon's defense is indeed strong. Now that its strength has increased greatly, even with 50% of my strength, I still cannot leave a mark on it, Xiao Qin muttered to himself as he withdrew his saber and looked at it. Roar! The iron demon roared and punched at the muttering Xiao Qin with its huge fist. Xiao Qin tilted his body slightly and casually dodged the iron demon's attack. Then, he hacked at the iron demon from behind. Chi! Chi! This time, Xiao Qian's saber cut the high-ranked iron demon's body, leaving a 3-centimeter-long mark. I need 70% of my strength to break its defense. 100% should be enough. Xiao Qin turned around and quickly spun around on the Scarlet Sea. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before the iron demon, which had run 100 meters away. Then, he did not hesitate to hack down with his saber. Pa! The saber light flickered. Xiao Qin used 100% of his strength and easily chopped off the iron demon's right arm. Try condensing more saber intent. The high-ranked iron demon was like a puppet in Xiao Qian's hands. It cried out in frustration, but it could not do anything about it. Bang! The lunar shadow saber flickering with purple light instantly stabbed into the high-ranked iron demon's chest. With the support of the saber intent, the saber easily penetrated the iron demon's chest. The iron demon did not feel any pain. It roared ferociously and punched at Xiao Qian's head. With a thought, a steady stream of purple crystalline essence poured into the saber. Xiao Qin shouted, "Explode!" Boom! The surging yuan qi instantly exploded. When the high-ranked Iron Demon's cold fist was only half a centimeter from Xiao Chen's head, its entire body shattered, turning into countless pieces flying into the air. Xiao Chen waved his hand and casually grabbed a piece of the Iron Demon's corpse. It was about the size of his palm and as hard as steel. It felt cold to the touch. The power of Xianyuan Zhantian's halberd could also shatter the Iron Demon into pieces. However, the pieces were like powder. Xiao Chen was far from comparable to this. I already used 100% of my strength in this attack. I even solidified my saber intent and state of massacre. However, the might of the explosion is far weaker than Xianyuan Zhantian's. Qi! Qi! Xiao Chen casually crushed the piece of metal in his hand into powder. Then, he revealed a contemplative expression. It looks like I can only reach that level after advancing to half-step martial monarch. This high-ranked Iron Demon allowed me to gain a better understanding of my offensive prowess. Suddenly, Len Yu's astonished voice came from the spirit blood jade. Xiao Chen, you successfully grasped the state of massacre. Xiao Chen nodded. Then, he shook his head and said, I can't be considered to have grasped it yet. I can only say that I got a feeling for it and gained some understanding of it. Perhaps the essence of the state of massacre is not death or destruction. There is another meaning to it. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.